What's up and good evening for most of you, not evening for some of you, because especially my esteemed guest who is joining me for tonight's open mic. It is early in the morning for him. My last party chat guest is joining me so we can talk a little more candidly. Stu the DJ, thanks for joining me again so we could talk a little less
Good
structured.
evening.
Good
Good evening
evening,
to
good
you, man.
morning.
Good morning.
What was I think it was it Bruce Almighty?
7
Good
a.m.
morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. I think that was one of his lines.
Mm-hmm.
Good movie. I haven't watched that in a long time.
It's been a while. It's been a while for sure.
But yeah, I was just thinking right as I was saying that right before we went live, I was like, yeah, because now I've had party, you were the guest on Party Chat, and then immediately after for open mic, and then last party chat was Goes Nowhere, Does Nothing, which is Charlie and Adam, and the open mic before that I had Adam, and the open mic I had after that, which would have been last week, I had Charlie. So it's kind of lined up great.
Yeah,
where all my
works,
party chat guests have also been the open mic guests within like a week or so of being on Party Chat, just coincidentally. So, well, cool. I'm glad
when that works out.
Yeah, glad. Yeah, it's great to be
conversation.
Yeah, I had a great time on Party Chat the other day.
Absolutely.
It reminded me of the episode 1 of Party Chat because we only got that was a short one too, but we only got the first couple episodes of Party Chat we only got through like 1 or maybe 2 questions. The first episode though was a very short one. It was only like an hour because I had to leave. But the second one was a full 90 minutes. I think we got through 2 questions. Ever since then, we've been able to get through like 3 or 4. So it's kind of like going back to that where we just go off on tangents and end up only going through like 1 or 2 questions. So that was a lot of fun. I don't care. It doesn't matter how many questions we get through to me as long as it's interesting.
The conversation is what matters.
Exactly.
Right?
And yeah, I had a lot of fun with that conversation. So Ryan was when he finally got in, he's like, "Wait, you guys are still on question 1?" I'm like, "Yep." It's like, well, let's move on.
He was rather shocked, wasn't he?
Yeah. I was like, "Hey, it's all about the conversation." I always load it up with more questions than I think we're going to need because I'd rather have to cut some of off than run out of questions to talk about. So had a great chat, but now we can talk more a little personally. Now we don't have not a schedule, but topics to keep to. So yeah, I know right before we went live, it's kind of fresh since it was literally hours ago. We were talking about the Game Awards. So if you want to kind of go over a little bit of that, what we're talking about, we don't have to focus on that too much unless you want to. But yeah, I haven't seen all of it. I've seen bits and pieces of it. I know you were saying like you were baffled by, I think you said it was the ongoing. Was that the one?
Yes, ongoing game. That was the most baffling one, especially when you consider who was nominated for that category.
The best ongoing game nominees were Apex Legends, Final Fantasy 14, Fortnite, Genshin Impact, and the winner, Cyberpunk.
Which is not even like a live service game. That's what I was like. Are you sure you mix up the categories there?
Yeah, you got 3 live service games, which is Apex, Fortnite, Genshin. You got an MMO, Final Fantasy 14, and then you got a single player first person shooter RPG with 1 DLC and no plans of a second, and that's the winner.
Pretty much, yeah.
Who voted on these? Oh, and what's up? We got Notorial Lifeform in the chat. Good evening, dude.
Good evening.
This Neo guy likes to rot his brain. Yes.
Yeah, I would love to know who voted for that category because I think it was journalists and the public, but I'm not too sure about that one.
It could be like heavily weighted in favor of the journalists.
I think it was the journalists who voted on that one because otherwise that wouldn't make any sense, to be honest.
How did it even get nominated? That literally makes 0 sense.
Beats me, man. I have no idea.
Not that there's anything bad about the game, because Mark has talked about it a bunch on Party Chat. That's especially since Update 2 came out a few months ago. It's actually a really good game now. So it's definitely on my radar to play at some point. Cyberpunk 1.
Cyberpunk,
not game of the year. We're talking about best ongoing game. Cyberpunk 1. Yeah. And it's not an ongoing game. So we're baffled by how that makes any sense. How is even
not by any definition that I would call ongoing, at least. You could say best comeback, maybe, if there were a category for that, but not as a game. No,
that I can.
Who won? Well,
game of the year was Baldur's Gate 3, unsurprising.
Mm-hmm.
And Nerdportal, actually, almost 3 years ago, Cyberpunk came out December of 2020. Literally 3 days from now.
Really, 3 years ago?
Because it launched on all platforms at the same time, right? I'm looking at the Xbox releases. December 10th, 2020. So in 3 days, it'll be its third anniversary.
How? No, I'm actually German, not Nerdportal. I was raised bilingual. That's how the accent came. That's why I have this unique accent going on. It's a kind of I try to be neutral, but whenever I'm in Scotland, because that's where that's from. The accent comes out, but usually when I talk to other people, I tend to keep it rather neutral so people can actually understand me. Because if I get the Scotsman out, you probably wouldn't understand me.
I was just listening to something today. I don't remember what, because I listened to a lot. And they were talking about some of those northern Scandinavian countries, and I think they were saying like Norwegian and can all understand each other except for Finnish, but they can understand Finnish, but no one can understand what the Finnish say.
It's to the average foreigner, to us, it sounds like gibberish. What they're saying, especially Swedish, which sounds like a whole different language within itself. I have no clue how it works, how they talk, but it doesn't make any sense. Even as a half German, I can't even make sense of it, to be honest with you. It doesn't make any sense.
Smooth here, making it
seem respectable. I beg your pardon, sir.
The proper. Well, I don't know what country you're in, but I do know that you're over there in that part of the world.
Germany.
Okay, you are in Germany.
Western Germany, so it's not too bad.
Okay, I was going to say we have some proper British representation, but no, we don't.
Half. You can say half, maybe, but it's fine.
Wait, you're close enough.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. What really baffled me also when we're looking at the categories, for example, there was best multiplayer game. Baldur's Gate won that one. I was like,
It does. Oh, I mean, it's got co-op, but I wouldn't call that a multiplayer game.
Nah, the campaign doesn't change just because you play it in co-op. It's literally the same thing. Last of Us won best video game adaptation, which didn't surprise me personally.
Yeah. No.
Best esports game was Valorant. That doesn't surprise me either. Alan Wake won best game direction and also I think it was sound design or something like that, which didn't really make sense to me, but sure. Armored Core won best action game though, which surprised me honestly.
Oh, best audio design was Hi-Fi Rush.
Hi-Fi Rush is a great game, by the way, if you haven't played that yet.
I have not, but I've heard great things about it.
It's great. It's actually quite fun, and it's also in Game Pass. So if you want to play PC and Xbox, you can actually do cross-play with that. So it's pretty cool.
It was a shadow drop too. It was and it's out today. I was like, what?
Mm-hmm. Pretty cool. Speaking of shadow drop, Nintendo dropped 3 games today on the Nintendo Switch Online. I think it was 1080.
Oh, the snowboarding game? I never owned it, but my friend had it because
I heard it's good.
I love that game back in the day because I'm a big snowboarder. I don't do as much nowadays because it's so expensive, but that was literally my favorite thing to do in high school. I was considering moving to Canada and going pro before. I didn't, but I considered it.
Yep. Let me think. What else was there? Harvest Moon 64, and there was another game on that list. Let me just have a look real quick. Switch mine. And Mario RPG sadly didn't make the list. It came out too late.
It didn't even get nominated for best RPG.
which is silly because it came just out days before after Alan Wake, and that didn't make the cut for some reason.
It-
Jet
like
Force Gemini was the third one. That was a
oh,
good game.
I did own that one, and I loved that
Mm,
one.
that was good.
Yeah, the only rare, I think the only rare game franchise that I never played was the Conquer games, and I know everyone like really
Mm,
loved those. But yeah, I liked basically everything that Rare did back in those days. The one thing, because I really want to play it again because I haven't played it since it was new on the 64. But being a achievement hunter and a completionist, because it is on Xbox, Jet Force Gemini,
it is.
it's part of the Rare replay. I hate that it's part of the Rare replay. Why can't it just be its own standalone game? I want to play Rare replay.
That baffles me.
I want to play Jet Force Gemini, but I can't play Jet Force Gemini without all the other games too. It's like, can't you just be individual games? Nope.
It really blows my mind. There's only one. It's like part of a collection. It's the same with Banjo and Kazooie, like the first one. That was also part of the Rare replay, I think.
Well,
Perfect
the
Dark
thing
was
is,
in there.
there's a bunch. So it's really weird because there's a bunch of games in the Rare replay that are all part of a bundle, and then there's some games in Rare replay that are standalone games, like GoldenEye, like Perfect Dark, both Banjo Kazooie games. You can play those without the rest of them, but some of them, like Blast Corps, you can't play that without all of the ones in Rare replay. Same thing goes with
that's
Gemini.
stupid. I actually liked Blast Corps back in the day as a kid. Where
that was the first N64 game I ever played. My friend had it. I played it, went over to his house.
It's great.
And yeah, the Perfect Dark remake is, we basically got a screenshot of it, or not even a screenshot, just like a reveal of it. How long ago was that now? 2 years, and I don't think we're still any closer.
2 or 3 years.
To
I think the last time I heard of it was like right when COVID happened. That was the last time I actually heard about it. I was like, wow, that's quite long ago now.
Yeah.
But then again, time is passing by so quickly nowadays. So
yeah, I'm very much looking forward to that because Perfect Dark, the original one, was my favorite game of all time for years. And it's unfortunately that it never got the recognition it deserves because it's better than GoldenEye in every way.
Well, it is, yeah. It's the same as Time Splitters. It was made by the same studio, and it's a great game as well.
Well,
I mean, granted, it hasn't aged well, but
I think because Time Splitters is not made by Rare, but a lot of people from Rare formed that studio.
Worked
I forget
on
what
that
it
one.
is, but yeah, that's why. Yeah, I had Time Splitters 2 on GameCube, and it played very much like GoldenEye. But
classic remasters.
To answer this question, Jet Force Gemini was a third-person shooter, and it was one of the
clunky
early ones because, like, at least I think generally considered like the game that really put third-person shooters on the map was Gears of War. I think most people would agree with that. Of course, there were some third-person, the cover shooter. There were ones before that, like one that I think I talked about on Party Chat for a game I always wanted to play but never did, was Kill Switch. That was the first time I ever saw a third-person shooter. I'm like, that game looks tight, and I never ended up playing it.
I don't think I've played it, to be honest.
That was a PS2 game, I believe. And yeah, Jet Force Gemini was a third-person shooter. It wasn't a cover shooter, though, but was on N64. So
one of the Kill Switch ones. Yeah, I see it now. Damn. Yeah, that's very close to Gears of War, actually. Like with the cover shooting and all that stuff.
It's basically the precursor.
It does look like it, yeah.
Yeah, no, Nerdpoil. Orange Box is Valve, and Valve has nothing to do with Rare.
No. Let me think. Rare. What else? What did they have? They had they had the Conquer games. Then they had
GoldenEye,
Killer Instinct.
Oh, they did have Killer Instinct. That's right. I never played that.
The
I'm not
old Killer Instinct. All the new one is so good. all the current day one you can still get. Battletoads was in there. The old one.
Battletoads was Rare.
Yep, Battletoads was Rare. Actually, I was quite surprised to find out about that. But yeah, it is actually.
That's right. Donkey Kong.
Donkey Kong.
Forget about Donkey Kong Country.
Country.
Yeah, and those are excellent. Those were my
How's Banjo
platformers.
Kazooie Nuts and Bolts was in there? Jeez.
Yeah, it was right at because that was a 360 exclusive. That's right after they went to Microsoft Bottom, which is also, Nuts and Bolts is not very well regarded. I've not
It
played
isn't.
it, so I don't know. I've seen plenty about it. I've not played it, so I can't say for it.
It
But I
is
know most
kind of
people don't like
funny
it.
when you look at Tears of the Kingdom and the building mechanics. Banjo and Kazooie Nuts and Bolts did that years before it, but got a lot of crap for it. I mean, granted, Banjo and Kazooie Nuts and Bolts is not what was advertised as like the third game of an ongoing franchise, but it is very interesting how that comes together. And
Yeah.
let's just say it's not great compared to like the other two games that came before it. Obviously,
Yeah.
you know.
I rented Banjo Kazooie, the original one, from Blockbuster, I think, and I played through a
Mhm.
good chunk of it, but I don't think I ever beat it, and I never played Banjo Tooie, but I've got them both on Xbox. So when I start I think I might have mentioned it on Party Chat, but when I finished my current completion climb back to where
Mhm.
I was, both Banjo Kazooie and Tooie are in my upcoming dive of games I'm going to be playing.
Mhm.
But around the time of Nuts and Bolts, another 360 rare game that did do pretty well was the Viva Pinata games.
Oh yeah, that
Those,
was a rare game as well.
a lot of people like those. I played the first one. I didn't play the second one, and
Mhm.
that was one of the ones when I played it. I was kind of ashamed of it uh, because it's
I
like
can
this
understand
little
why. I can kind of
kids
understand
game,
why.
and you're
Yeah,
like basically mating your pinatas to ha- make new
it's
ones.
a,
But
it's it's
yeah.
interesting though.
I,
The
I
idea behind it is pretty cool.
yeah, a lot of people
Um,
really liked it. I liked it better than I thought I was going to. But I never played
absolutely,
the
yeah.
second one. But I game passed it, or not game passed. Game pass wasn't around back then. I game flied it. So once I was done with it, I sent it back.
I'm amazed because you just mentioned Banjo and Kazooie. I was like, I'm amazed that I managed to get through that game without getting a migraine, especially because of the voices that they use in that game.
Uh,
Those voices do your bloody head in as an adult nowadays. When you listen to
in
these sound
Banjo,
effects in Banjo, yeah,
yeah, they're
those
little
sound
like
effects, ugh,
there's
the sound effects are
squabbles or whatever.
jarring. All
I
these kind of
ah,
noises. It is weird as all hell
uh,
nowadays.
I vaguely remember because it's been 20 plus years
Years
since I played it. But
easily.
I do remember it being kind of like that, like gibberish, kind of like Sims.
It,
Um,
I mean, a lot of these noises are just nonsense that are just on repeat while they're talking and being used as a voice. But man, going back to some of these games, you're like, how did I manage to play those without like questioning my sanity?
yeah, it's like when you play those games that you loved as a kid and you go back to them as an adult, you're like, yeah, this wasn't as good as I remember it was.
I think it's also because we're spoiled with proper voice acting nowadays that we listen to this kind of stuff now in older games, and you're like, ugh.
Yeah, that definitely
Brian
could play a
Kirkhope's
part of it.
music is great though, but
I don't know who that is.
he's the composer for the Banjo and Kazooie series. He also did the
Okay.
soundtrack for I think GoldenEye 64, if I'm not mistaken,
Oh, okay.
or some of it at
That would
least.
make sense since it's
And
both
he
rare.
also did the soundtrack for Kingdoms of Amalur.
Oh, nice.
And
I've heard good things about that game, despite it didn't do
the
very well.
soundtrack of that is really good, really, really good. I don't
It's
know if you play
funny.
you.
While we're on the topic of Kingdom of Amalur, it's ironic because I couldn't go into it. I briefly went into it on Party Chat one time,
Right.
but I don't know the details of it exactly. But how that game came to be is a pretty fascinating story. And then it
It
didn't
is.
do very well, and it didn't sell well. Then they did a remaster of it a couple years ago, and that actually did better. And the
It did.
remaster has DLC that the original didn't.
They just dropped some new DLC for it as well.
Oh,
Just
another one?
just recently. Yeah.
That's funny.
And surprisingly, that game is kind of a supplement for Fable for me because Fable dropped the ball very hard with the third one. I loved
Okay.
Fable 2. I
That's the
didn't
only
like
Fable
3.
I've played. I played 2.
2 is great. I really enjoy that game.
Yeah,
3 is not so great. 3 is not
that's
so
what
great.
I've heard.
I think they were a bit too over ambitious with that one.
Yeah. Well,
That's the least
Peter
you can say
Molyneux,
about it.
man, that guy.
Oh
Talk
boy.
about promising things you can't deliver on.
Hmm. And people give Hello Games a lot of crap.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, before we got too far off of it, yes, Nerdportal, I have seen both your Zelda and DK retrospectives, and they were great. So
Donkey Kong is holds up surprisingly well still. I mean, granted, you have to get used to the controls if you play it on NSO, Nintendo Switch Online, but it plays very well still. It's
Are you-
especially because you needed this expansion pack to play it to actually get extra RAM. Do you remember that?
are you talking
Yes.
about you're talking about Donkey Kong 64?
64, yeah.
Yes.
64 is still playing surprisingly well. I mean, granted, graphics wise, it didn't age well because of the polygons and all that stuff, but gameplay wise, it's still good.
Okay,
Tropical
yeah,
Freeze is a good one, yeah. But
I've heard
you know,
Tropical Freeze is good. I haven't played it, but I did have Donkey Kong 64, and I didn't get 100% in it, but I got pretty close. I'd say I probably got like 85, 90%.
something like that, yeah. I
But
couldn't
yeah,
beat
you had
the
to have
final
the
boss for years. It took me forever.
I mean, I'm pretty sure it was King K. Rool, right? As I would
Mhm.
expect for a Donkey Kong game, and I think it has like one phase per playable character, right? I
Yep.
remember
So
Chunky
every character
Kong.
has their own mechanics that they have to work with to damage him.
That's right.
So all the Kongs have to work together.
The only one I remember is Chunky Kong, and it's like a boxing match. I don't remember the rest of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was some. I think it was Tiny Kong who had to shrink down to like microscopic size, and she has to like attack a toe of him or something like that.
Oh, you're right.
It was
that
the
sounds
weirdest thing. I was like,
right.
huh?
Yeah, he had an opening in his shoe. You had to go in his shoe and like attack his toenail or
And
something.
attack his toe or something. Yeah, it was a weird thing. I do remember that. I was like, what were they thinking? You know. But
yeah, that game required the expansion pack. Required it. I don't remember which game.
There weren't that many games that needed it.
I think I got my expansion pack with Majora's Mask. I think Majora's Mask came with it packed in. Originally.
I think Donkey Kong was the first game that needed it for sure. I think came bundled with that. I think.
Yeah, because I think you're right that DK64 was the first one that required it because, as I was just saying earlier, my favorite was Perfect Dark. That did not require it, but if you had it, it unlocked additional options in the multiplayer that you couldn't do without it.
It's kind of funny when you see the amount of memory it has.
Well, that's the thing. It expanded the RAM. The expansion pack, the N64 had 2 megabytes of RAM. The expansion pack doubled it to 4 megabytes.
Yep, it's pretty funny.
Let's see here. Donkey Kong.
Majora's Mask came out in 2000.
Majora's Mask came out in 2000.
Jesus.
Okay. So, what game did I have it that it came packed in with? Because I know I didn't buy it.
DK64 because I remember, well, at least in Europe, it was bundled with DK64. I do remember that, and it was expensive.
Let's see here.
And there was this question of why DK64 really needed that expansion pack, but Lord knows why.
Expansion pack was bundled with DK64, and in Japan, the expansion pack additionally was bundled with Majora's Mask and Perfect Dark. Okay, maybe I did get it with Perfect Dark.
Could be because that's one of the games that actually needed it. I think to run properly.
Yeah, to get the full things out of it.
I remember when you put the cartridge in without the expansion pack, that the Nintendo 64 outright refuses to play the game. Or you could go to the menu, but that was pretty much it, I think.
Yeah, I found an article here that says the only 2 games that actually required it, and it was Majora's Mask and DK64.
Kind of funny when you really think about it, especially nowadays when Majora's Mask run on a 3DS and all that. It's really funny.
Yeah, it's crazy when you think about like the games that they fit on, the cartridges back then.
It's kind of nuts.
Looking at like Super Nintendo cartridges hold like was it like 40 megabytes, or maybe it was like less than that. And I think NES cartridges were like 800 kilobytes or something.
They weren't big. It was
okay.
It's also surprising when you
SNES,
Yeah.
48 megabytes. Oh, sorry, 48 megabits, which is equivalent to 6 megabytes. That's what it was.
Damn. Jerry
And
Crow says
oh, Jerry
something.
Crow's hopping here. What's up, Jerry Crow? He
What's
was just
up?
over at the Melee crew right before this. And the NES cartridge was 1 megabit, 40 kilobytes. 40 kilobytes. We
Wow.
have like a hand-drawn picture in paint is more data than NES games.
It's kind of funny, especially if you think about like all these patches and add-ons and all that stuff that comes out nowadays, and you think to yourself like, how many SNES cartridges is that, or how many floppy disks would that be,
Yeah, seriously. Like
or CDs, even, you know?
I remember talking to this is probably like 10 years ago, but a guy who was probably on the verge of being between Gen X and baby boomer. So he was a bit older than me, and he was
Right.
an IT guy, and he's talking about like being an IT guy in like the 80s and how it was like this revolutionary thing when IBM announced their 10 megabyte hard drive. Said this is the largest hard drive you will ever need.
When you think about how much 10 megabytes is nowadays, it's like maybe one song.
Yeah,
If we're being
like
generous here, or two.
2.5 MP3s
Yeah,
at a
something like that.
at a mediocre bit rate. If you bump
Yeah.
that bit rate up, it's like maybe one MP3.
Hmm.
Let's here. Jerry Carroll saying, was it DK64 that needed it only because of poor coding? I don't know about that. Like there was a triple.
Yeah,
nested release because someone
there was
couldn't
something
log in.
funky with it. Yeah.
I have never heard anything about poor coding in the game. I just know that DK64 needed it, but why? I have no idea. All right, Nerdpoil's taking off. Good night, man. Good to see you for a little bit. Thanks for making my walk timeless. You're welcome. Try to find a file on your PC less than 40 kilobytes. Yeah, exactly.
Good luck with that. I certainly can't think of any file on my laptop right now that's that size.
An empty
Maybe
notepad file that I just
maybe
created.
a notepad file that has like one line of text or something like that. Maybe.
Yeah.
But nah.
It's like, and it's always baffling. Like one of the things that, like, when people talk about like like actual conspiracy theories, not the conspiracy theories of today. But like if you're familiar with Alex Stein, he is adamant that we've never been to the moon. So like I believe that we have been to the moon, but when people make arguments that we haven't, one of the things that is like for me anyways, is the thing that really is the closest thing to pushing me over the edge to saying maybe we haven't, is just that the fact that like their computers back in the 60s like is like I have to look it up, but how much less powerful those computers were than like our average cell phones now, and they sent people to the moon with those. It's like
the technology was
really
yeah.
So it's like
it does make you wonder sometimes, doesn't it? Like I've been to the NASA museum in Houston when I did my trip to the US early in August, and I saw the props and all that stuff that they put up to show you the moon landing a little bit, and you see these things and you're like, okay, so that's the tech that they sent to the moon, huh? Interesting. It is quite eye opening, actually. Well, if you really think about it, or especially the computers they have on the ISS, for example. It is quite fascinating what kind of technology they have up there.
Yeah, that thing's been up there for how many years? I mean, it's been assembled
there since I can think, actually.
ISS launched November 1998. So it's like
wow, so
5 years. Yeah. But it was assembled in pieces, so there's probably sections of it that are newer than others. But yeah. So, totally off topic and nothing video game related, but there was a trailer that came out this week for a movie where there's American astronauts and Russian astronauts on the ISS, and they look down and the world goes to nuclear war, and then they both get orders from their command saying take control of the ISS. No,
okay.
by any means necessary. I'm like,
Right.
dude, this looks interesting. I'm really interested to see where.
That's an interesting concept.
I was like, I love this concept, so I'm interested to see more about
Hmm.
what how that movie turns out. I don't even remember what
That's
it was
some
called.
that's some interesting moral stuff, isn't it? If you when you really think about it, like how would you react to that? You know?
Yeah, it's like, yeah,
It's,
it's quite a
it's
conundrum. I can't imagine
Mhm.
being in that situation, but I was like, I love this concept. I'm very interested in seeing this movie.
You know, I read a funny meme or funny commentary on Twitter earlier today. That somebody said that Godzilla minus one is basically a sequel to Oppenheimer. I was like,
Yeah, I've been seeing that as a
it's like,
meme lately.
really? Okay,
I
I'll
haven't
roll
seen
with it.
either of them, but the
I've
fact
seen
that
Oppenheimer. It's
God,
it's pretty good, but you have to have patience for it because it's a long movie.
yeah, I
Godzilla, I still need to see, but I
haven't.
heard it's very good.
Same here. But yeah, I know that Godzilla's origin was from radiation from nuclear bomb testing, so it makes sense that
Hmm.
that Oppenheimer is the precursor to Godzilla.
It's a bit of a reach, obviously, but it's still funny to just entertain the idea, you know.
Exactly. Yeah, and Jerry Crow's it's interesting. So NASA says that the ISS will need to be decommissioned by 2030, which that would be 32 years at that point. So goodbye, cupola. Not sure what
Well,
that's referencing, but yeah, that movie looks really interesting. So I'm interested to see where that goes. But speaking of the whole moon landing hoax thing, it just reminded me of something in high school. In my speech class, one of
hmm.
the guys was doing. I don't remember what type of speech it was, but his speech was on um, proving that the moon landing was fake, and he had pictures, but because it was a landscape picture that printed on portrait paper, part of the picture was cut off on page 2,
Oh,
and he didn't even
why?
realize it though. And so I'm like, and I did like
Something's off here.
I was like, because one of his points was like, see, look, this astronaut doesn't have a shadow, and I'm like, so I did
Oh,
Sherlock Holmesing, and I was like, why is this? And I realized, oh, it didn't print
hmm.
all the way. And I was like, aha, it's because he's
Gotcha.
jumping. So the shadow
Mhm.
isn't at his feet, it's over here because the sun was over here, and the shadow was on the next page. They got cut off. I was like, I just proved your whole thesis wrong. I was very proud of myself for that.
You know, it's kind of funny what kind of reaches people are taking to just to get their point across. Sometimes
It's
it really surprises me. You know?
I don't I think he was a real jokester, so I don't know if he was doing it intentionally or not. But I believe that he didn't realize it till I pointed it out. But he
Mm.
was a fun guy to hang out with. He was a real jokester. But anyways, back to video games. So boogie boarding. Um, do you understand that reference?
Doesn't ring a bell, no.
Okay.
Enlighten,
So
enlighten.
I reference that every once in a while. Anytime something gets off topic, it's like, so boogie
Mm.
boarding, because there was an episode of How I Met Your Mother where
Oh,
there
yeah,
was
I
an
do remember that
episode
show.
where one of them they were in the bar, and somebody saw a sign that said no boogie boarding in the bar, and so someone was asking
Right.
about this, why is there no boogie boarding sign in the bar? And so they start telling the story, but they keep getting sidetracked, so they have to try to get it back on topic. So they're like, so boogie boarding. So anytime I'm trying to
Okay.
draw something back to the
I need
topic
to
on
rewatch How I
hand.
Met Your Mother. I
I,
haven't watched that in years now.
Yeah, I watched through it once. I started watching it probably around season 5, and then I watched
Mm.
each following season as it aired. But yeah, other than the final episode, that was a great show. The final episode,
Mhm.
series finale of that show was god awful.
Yeah, I don't know what they were thinking with that finale, to be honest.
But when
But
you think about it, what shows do, especially that long running, do have a great series finale? There's probably more that have bad ones than good ones.
there's not
Recent,
many with good ones. I mean, one that comes to mind is House.
okay,
House
I
MD.
saw a couple episodes of that, and I thought it was a pretty good show.
It's a good show.
I'm glad to
The
hear that.
ending is appropriate. I mean, I wasn't happy with the ending, but it was appropriate for the show,
Okay.
to say the least. You know.
of recent shows that I really liked that had a phenomenal series finale was Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Had a great final episode. That was
Still haven't
that was a
seen the
great
finale.
show. I loved that show, and it was a very good.
Mm.
That was probably the best one in recent memory for a series finale.
Right.
Excellent. But yeah, anytime it's like trying to get something back on topic. That I go, so boogie boarding. So, was there anything else on the Game Awards that you wanted to talk about?
I was just thinking. I'm just going through the list right now. Let's see. Most anticipated game is Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which had a musical performance for the main theme of this of that game.
My game didn't even make it on the list.
Well, to be honest, I'm kind of glad I didn't watch the trailer that they dropped afterwards because it is spoiler heavy, like extremely spoiler heavy. I was like pretty glad that I didn't watch that one.
Oh, you're talking Rebirth?
Rebirth, yeah. I tried to be as spoiler free as possible. I mean, granted, the game is probably the same as the original, just with a few Advent children references in it and Crisis Core and all that stuff. But I don't think it will steer away from that too much. I think.
Yeah, I think I've seen all the Final Fantasy movies, but I don't see why some of them. Like the first one I saw was Spirits Within. I'm like, why is this Final Fantasy?
That's not. See, take the Final Fantasy out of that movie, and you've got you have a sci-fi movie that was kind of okay.
I liked it. I don't know anything about Final Fantasy, and I'm like, why does this have Final Fantasy in the name? But I thought it was pretty good. But then when I watched Advent Children, I was like, now this is what I would expect from a Final Fantasy movie.
Yep. Yeah, Kojima was there, and he talked about his new game, I think, OD or something like that.
I didn't see what it was
making
called,
for Microsoft.
I didn't see the trailer.
Jordan Peele was on stage with him. He's apparently working with him. But yeah, I noticed an interesting thing about the awards that they kind of rushed the speeches a little bit. So every time you hear the people talking, you could hear the music in the background. Like, okay, you need to hurry up and wrap your speech up.
Exactly what Jerry Crow was just saying. They rush through the awards so they get to the trailers.
I mean, granted, they only went 5 minutes over time because last time they went over time like very much, like half an hour or 40 minutes or something like that. Oh. But I think they did that just to keep the show going. But you could tell that they were on a very tight time schedule, especially when it came to the ads and all that stuff. But I was surprised by the lack of mobile ads this time around because the last Game Awards was bad with like a lot of mobile games being advertised. I mean, granted, you had like the Honkai Star Rail and all that stuff going on at the awards this time, but it was not as much as I had feared, actually.
Yeah, I wonder if they realize like most of the people who are these type of gamers aren't really into mobile games like that. You know, playing games on the go, sure, like with a Switch or a Steam Deck, but playing actual mobile games. I mean, just like I was just saying, it's like just reference the Diablo Immortal announcement. Don't you guys have phones? Like, no one wants this.
I love the red shirt guy for the reaction of the year. Was like, is this an out of season April Fool's joke?
Yeah,
you know what? That's the best reaction to that kind of stuff. Just call that crap out. Just do it. You know, that's the best thing you can do. The sheer reaction of the director was the icing on the cake. There, do you guys not have phones?
It's like talk about being out of touch.
Yep, just a little bit. I mean, granted, Blizzard hasn't been in touch for years. If you look at the debacle with Diablo, with Warcraft 3, for example, the Reforged collection.
I never played it, but I've heard plenty about it. It's like, wow, that is just one shoot your foot after the other moment.
See, the thing is, I love Warcraft 3. It's a great game, and the expansion to it is also very good. What they've done with that game is essentially putting a skin suit on it and pretending to be said game. And then force you to play that version of the game. You can't play the old one without the more conventional ways anymore.
Right.
Which is a shame.
Yeah, and they made it.
I don't understand why they do that.
I've heard because it's stupid. So, the only experience I have with Warcraft 3 is I watched my roommate in college play it for a little bit because he liked it, and all I ever saw was tower defense.
Mhm.
it's actually an RTS, right? And tower
It
defense
is an
was just one of
RTS,
the
yes.
and the RTS or the tower defense was just like a game type in the game that
It was a mini game, I think, because
okay.
there was different or challenges that you could play with different characters, or sometimes even player created things. I think that you could
Okay.
play, and that's how that whole thing came to be. But I think the tower defense mode was something that they just implemented for the lols, really, so you
Okay.
can see how far you can go with set amount of characters and units and all that stuff.
Okay.
It is interesting. It is
I
interesting.
I thought that was the case. I was like, I
Mhm.
don't think Warcraft 3 is actually a tower defense game. I think it's an RTS,
Nah,
and I just happen to only see the tower defense aspect of it. And I was like,
it's funny when you look at when you watch your friends play games out of context, then you realize like, maybe that was not how this game was supposed to be played.
maybe this isn't.
It is very interesting.
Yeah, when you get like that bad first impression, it's like, no, you didn't, that's not the game. That was just like a tiny portion of the game.
hmm I was very surprised that Spider Man didn't win anything though. That
Didn't win
surprised me the
anything.
most. It didn't win anything. No, it was nominated for 7 awards. It didn't win one of them.
Wow. Yeah,
It could have
that's surprising to me as well.
Zelda Tears of the Kingdom won Best Action Adventure Game over Spider Man.
Hmm.
I saw Spider Man winning that one, and then suddenly it was like, yeah, it's Zelda. I was like, okay, weird.
Wait, Zelda was nominated for player's voice? Like, is that like a player's
That was the
voice?
entire that was the player's vote. So that was
Oh, okay. I
that
was
was the
like,
sole player vote one. The Game of the Year one
gotcha.
was a mix of journalists and gamers. I think the player's voice was only based on the
Uh,
gamers' votes.
okay. I was like, I think this means like a player's voice as in like their voice and their opinion,
Player's
not like
choice.
players like voices and like voice acting. 'Cause I was like, Link's
Yeah,
mute, so why would
I
you
think
vote for
it's a poorly worded category, to be honest. I think it should have been player's choice,
yeah.
in my opinion, because that would have worked better. But for some reason, they went with voice. For some
Yeah,
reason,
okay. Because I was like, well, Link doesn't have a voice actor. He's mute. So how why would you vote for that? Why would that be nominated?
yeah, I'm
Uh,
curious how they're going to go around with that when they do the live action Zelda movie.
yeah,
If how
that's
they were going to communicate that one.
I'm very interested to see how they're going to thread that
Uh,
needle because I don't think they're
I'm
going to make
curious as
anybody
well.
happy. But
Oh, the
I hope that
casting
they do.
itself will be bad. I think a lot of people will give them flack for it. To be honest.
I hope it turns out like a Heath Ledger Joker sort of situation where everyone's
Oh, I
like,
hope so too. Yeah.
"What?" And then they see it and they're like, "Oh my god, he was amazing." So hopefully it's something like that.
That's the beauty of movies, by the way, that you can you see people in roles and you're like, nah, that doesn't work. Then you actually see them perform the role and you're like, oh man, I was dead wrong about that one. You know?
Yeah. Where did that go? So, but yeah, the one thing that I was gonna say, and it was kind of along the lines because where'd it go? What was it? Best or most anticipated game? Is that what it
Yeah,
was?
that was Final Fantasy VII Rebirth.
Yeah, and
Surprisingly,
then they apparently had a trailer for that later in the show. So,
shortly before that, they
oh,
had a
just
musical
before it.
performance that tied into the game, and then
There
then
it is.
they went to the vote, and later on they released a trailer for it. So
Okay.
there was like a snippet of the trailer was in the musical performance that you could see, and they kind of spoiled a little bit of how part two is going to be. But I looked away in that moment. I was like, nah, I don't want to see this
Okay.
because I didn't want to get spoiled, you know.
Yeah, because
Uh,
where I was going with that is my game for most anticipated wasn't nominated, but it did get a trailer, and I was like, yes. And
which
that's
one was it?
Black Myth Wukong. From the
Yep,
moment I saw that game like 2 years ago, I'm like, I
it
can't
looks great.
freaking wait
It,
for this game because I obviously just seen clips of it so far.
mhm,
Um, but my one of my favorite games of all time, I mention it very often, is Ninja Gaiden Black. Is
mhm.
in my
Great game.
probably top 3 games of all time. I love that game. But Dark Souls became like this thing, and now the Ninja Gaiden style hack and slash like doesn't exist
Mm.
because everyone does Souls clones, and they're very different games. So, and I've never played any. Well, I haven't played any of the Souls games. I've started Dark Souls Remastered.
Right.
I've got past the Asylum Demon, so I've just played a little, basically the prologue.
Mhm.
The only Souls-like game I have played, well, 3D, I should say. I played a number of 2D Souls-likes, but the only 3D one that's like a true Souls-like, it basically like baby's first Souls-like, is Fallen Order.
Mhm.
But
Fallen
it
Order
looks
was not a bad game.
no, it was. In my
I
opinion,
enjoyed it.
the only thing to come out of Disney Star Wars that wasn't garbage.
Was that surprisingly?
Yeah,
Yep.
so
I
I
agree.
haven't played Jedi Survivor yet. I am looking forward to playing it. I don't know
Mhm.
when I'm going to get to it, but I will be playing at some point, definitely.
I haven't
Um,
played it yet, but I'm confident that it's just as good as Fallen Order.
yeah, I
I
think
just heard
so.
that it has had a lot of problems at launch because it wasn't optimized properly
For
or something
PC, I
like
heard
that,
that it had PC
or for
problems.
PC at least. Yeah, but it's
But
over.
what
All
PC
in all, it
games
looks good.
launch in a good state these days? It's like, because they used to develop games for PC and then port them to consoles. Now it's the other way
Yep.
around, and PC gets shafted and they get bad ports.
Yeah, it's yeah. That brings us back to GTA 6 a little bit, doesn't it? that that PC port is like very far out. I think we won't be
Oh,
seeing that
because it's
for at least 2 or 3 years extra on top of
right, because
the
they said
release
it's
date.
only coming to consoles at first, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Black
Uh,
Myth actually also had a release date announced,
yes, August 20th,
20th.
2024. Like,
Looking forward to
yes.
it. I think that's one of the very few Souls games I'm actually going to stream when it comes out.
And the
I
thing
think.
is that this looks, I'll need to see more about it because they still haven't really showed anything really in depth about the game. But where
Right.
I was going with that is like, there's basically no Ninja Gaiden like hack and slashes anymore. They're all basically
Mhm.
Souls like. So this one,
Yep.
it still looks Souls like, but it looks more like it's similar to Ninja Gaiden than it is
The old hack
to
and slash kind of games.
Dark Souls, because Dark Souls is basically an action RPG. You get all sorts of different pieces of
Mm,
gear, and I think you can level them up and you can build your character all these different ways, which is
yeah,
fine. No problem with that.
absolutely. Yeah.
But I just love the simplicity of Ninja Gaiden where you don't have any of that. You basically get, uh, I think Ninja Gaiden 1 and 2 had about 7 or 8 weapons in them, and you get them
Mhm.
throughout the story, and you can upgrade them 1 or 2 times, and the upgrades don't actually do more damage. They just unlock additional combos so you can hit enemies more times before you run out of your combo, so you can effectively do more damage.
They're like improvements to your combo palette
Yeah.
in a
But
way. Yeah.
it's basically 2 to 3 upgrades per weapon, and you don't have like a skill tree or anything. So I
Mhm.
just love the simplicity of that, and that's basically disappeared. So I'm hoping that this will be kind of more in the maybe more like a good hybrid of the two type of hack and slashes.
Well, it remains to be seen. I mean, I've seen a bit of preview footage that they released it for Gamescom. I think was it
Yeah.
Gamescom? I
Oh,
think
I
it was
don't remember
Gamescom.
what it was, but yeah, there was like 6 months ago or so. They released like a
They did
20-minute
some preview
demo.
footage, but you couldn't really make anything out of that because it was it was still in early stages, so they said, you know.
Yeah.
But I noticed an interesting trend that there's more and more Souls-like games coming out because there was another one announced for DNF, the Korean RPG mobile game that came out a couple of years ago, which also had a fighting game coming out, and they make a Souls-like game now too for one of the characters. I think it was Berserker or something, the first Berserker.
Like
It
the
looked
anime?
um
Oh, that's just Berserk, not Berserker.
Berserk, no, Berserker. It was like Dungeon Fighter Online or something. It was called, I think. And
Okay.
they have a game coming out as well. Let me just see if I can.
Okay.
The first Berserker. I'll send you the link in the private chat if I find it. The first Berserker Kazan. That's what it's called, I think.
I have no
But
idea what you're talking about.
it's a it's a Souls-like game, but it's very anime heavy.
Okay.
I think I'll see
Not
if I can find a.
Not
a
a
link
big
for it.
weeb. I've seen a few.
That's you don't have to. I mean, there's a link here from Game Informer. They usually have quite good links for that. It looks interesting. It's not like this typical Souls-like gameplay that you're used to. But then again, Lies of P has struck a good
Yeah,
balance with that one.
I
I
was just
think
gonna say Mark he hasn't had
singing the
one bad thing
praises.
to say about Liza P, and it's his game of the year. So I think he was even saying that he was almost thinking about not playing it. So it's
Mm.
surprisingly good just coming from someone who has played a number of Souls like. The ones other Souls like that I've heard it's the hardest of the Souls likes, but I'm very much looking forward to playing it because it's the most Ninja Gaiden-esque is Sekiro. I'm
Sekiro,
looking
yeah,
forward to playing that.
that's the spiritual successor to Ninja Gaiden, really. That game, I can see why you would be interested in playing that one because
And that
it is fun,
and
but
it's
boy,
not
it kicks your ass.
yeah, but it's very more basic than like Dark Souls because I don't think you
Mm.
have all this like armor and stuff. You don't build
Mm.
a skill tree or anything. It's just you and
You
your
have a
sword
skill
and you.
tree.
Oh, do you?
You have a skill tree, but it's very limited,
Okay.
and you learn skills as you go. But you don't get any extra armor or anything like that. You get like extra gear, like a flamethrower and all that stuff. But it's very basic. It encourages you to block properly and counter and all that stuff.
Yeah, and parry.
It is very Ninja Gaiden esque. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not like basically not like a loot based action RPG like
Yeah.
like Diablo, whereas which is basically from what I understand that's basically how Dark Souls games are. It's just instead of it being like an isometric view,
Mm.
it's a third person view and you get all sorts of gear and stuff and
Mm.
so
My first introduction to the Soul series was Bloodborne. Funnily enough, I mean, I've seen my best friend play like Dark Souls 2 and 3, but I could never get into those games. So I was like, well, let's try Bloodborne. And being naive as I am sometimes when it comes to games, I just walked into it expecting it would be the ordinary hack and slash ordeal because I was kind of used to like God of War gameplay, like the old God of War.
yeah.
Boy, was I wrong! And when I noticed how much I got my ass kicked in those games, I was like, "Ooh, maybe I should change my approach to those." Yeah,
Yeah,
then I did Sekiro, and I got quite far into it, but sadly, I could never finish it because I just lacked the skills to get far enough in the game. I did good progress, but not good
Sekiro.
enough.
One thing that it does do, at least from my understanding,
Mm,
basically the same as Dark Souls, because like Dark Souls doesn't have a difficulty. You just play the game.
mm,
I don't think Sekiro has a difficulty setting, right?
it
You just
doesn't know.
play it and have to get better. Yeah, what
Yep.
Ninja Gaiden, at least, well, because I did play the original Ninja Gaiden, not the NES versions, but like because there was Ninja Gaiden on Xbox, and then they re-released
Mm,
it as Ninja Gaiden Black,
mm,
because
yeah.
uh, it was in the very very early stages of Xbox Live. It was basically one of the first games on console, at least, to ever have DLC. But no one had
Yep.
Xbox Live back then because it was still so brand new, and because of that, the DLC they released they put it on disc and re-released it as Ninja Gaiden Black. Um,
Mm,
but I played that original version on Xbox, and it was very difficult. And it had three
mm.
difficulties: it had normal, hard, and very hard. When they re-released it as Ninja Gaiden Black, because it was so difficult and people were complaining about it, they added Ninja Dog, which is the very easy, the easy
Mm.
mode. It's still, if you're not somewhat familiar with hack and slashes, even on the Ninja Dog, you'll probably still get your butt kicked.
Wasn't that
But
also the difficulty level where you could essentially can't finish the game when you try to beat it?
no, you
Wasn't that
can
the
finish it
one?
on the on. There are games that have done that, but Ninja Gaiden didn't do that. Um,
Or was that the
the
old Ninja Gaiden that did that? I'm trying to
that
think.
could
There was a
be.
game that told you to bump up the difficulty because it was too easy.
I
They
know.
gave you like a fake ending or something like that.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I have heard that. I don't think it was Ninja Gaiden, but I do remember there was a game around that time that if you didn't play it on the at least normal, you couldn't get to
Mm,
the actual ending of the game. So you're not wrong there in that
mm,
aspect. Um,
I
But
see Jerry mentioning Fortnite in the chat, by the way.
oh yeah, he's saying, has anyone ever picked up Fortnite and been afterwards being like, "Wow, that was a wonderful engine, so capable"? I don't think so.
See, Fortnite is one thing where I'm like fascinated that people enjoy that game so much because it's a hodgepodge of a lot of things that have come before, right? So it's essentially a bit of the building aspect of Minecraft. And then you have the shooting, the average shooting that you get in every single third person shooter game. But of course, it's cartoonized with the cartoon aspect in it because there's hardly any violence in it.
Yeah, I've never
But I
played
could
it and
never get
have
into
no.
it.
I've never played it and have no intention to ever playing it. So
You're not missing much. Let me just
yeah,
put it that way. I
and
mean,
I'm especially since
I'm
it's
not
a
awfully
multi.
competitive.
I
That's
don't.
also an issue, I think.
I'm very competitive, but
Mhm.
um, I don't. I when was last? I'm trying to think when last time I talked about it, but it's come up a few times. Like I almost exclusively play single player games. The last time I actually played
I'm the same.
a multiplayer game like regularly, in I mean like in actual like the actual multiplayer mode. I did because I played a ton of the first Destiny, but I only played the multiplayer mode as much as I
Mhm.
needed to get either like the exotic quest I was working on or get some piece of gear
I
or
think
an
we talked about
achievement.
that before the stream last time, didn't
Did
we?
we? It might have been. I know I've talked about
I
it a
think
few
it was,
times.
yeah. Yeah.
But the last time I actually like played a multiplayer game just to play the multiplayer uh, was Modern Warfare 2, the original Modern
Oh,
Warfare 2.
yeah.
And the only reason why I did that
Thanks.
is because I had some friends who were really into it. Like
Mhm.
um and I did the other ones that I did play quite a bit was Halo 3 and Halo Reach. I played a lot of those online, and that was because I had friends that did that. If it wasn't for them, I probably would never play the multiplayer because it makes me so mad.
Yeah.
I love competitive or not competitive, cooperative multiplayer. So
Mhm.
you and buddies versus the game.
Played
I love
together
that.
against the enemies. Yeah.
Like one of the well, I beat it the DLC recently because I completed the base game a while ago, but I played through almost the
Mhm.
entirety of the base game with two of my buddies, and that was Ghost Recon Wildlands, and that was a lot of fun. I
Wow.
ended up playing the
Wildlands.
DLC by myself
Mhm.
because they had already finished the game like a long time ago. But Wildlands was a great, fun co-op game. I still, to this
Mhm.
day, regularly play the Mass Effect 3 multiplayer a couple times a month with
Does
some of my
that does
buddies.
that still work?
Yeah, it's
Does it?
peer to peer, so that you don't have to worry about servers ever
Oh,
going down.
that's
Um,
cool.
but yeah,
I
the
thought it was like
multiplayer.
server based for some reason.
Nope, it's peer to peer, so we won't have to worry about it going down, which is great because it's my favorite game of all time, and I love playing the multiplayer with some of my buddies. Now that
That's
I've got
cool.
a I don't remember if I mentioned it, but I just recently got. Well, I've had these PC parts since last year, but
Mhm.
I've when I got them, I wasn't able to get it working. So a couple months ago in like September, I was like, all right, I'm gonna do whatever it takes to get this thing up and working. So I've actually got
Right.
a PC that can run games. So I've been building my PC game collection over the last couple months. And I
Right
bought
on.
one of the first ones I bought on Steam was Mass Effect 3. So I can play it with
The Mass
PC
Effect
buddies as
series
well.
is the Mass Effect series is a fascinating one for me because it, I had a really hard time getting into it at first, but I understood why people loved it. But I just really had to give it a few tries before I actually started liking it. And
I
I
was hooked instantly.
I
But
I,
I had
I
that.
kind of liked it in the end because it was the sci-fi RPG wet dream that you could have, you know. And
Yeah.
then Dragon Age came along. You're like, okay, so it's the same formula, really, isn't it? So
I never.
I was fascinated by Mass Effect in the end because the story is really good and the characters. Oh man,
Yeah,
the
it's
characters.
great. I never did get into the Dragon Age games. I'm sure I would like them. I just like I just never really gave them a chance, but I'm sure I would like it. But kind of
They're
along those
they're just
lines,
as good. They're just as
that's
good.
whatever. My buddy who I regularly play Mass Effect with, he played all of them. And yeah, he loves them. He's like,
Mm.
I know you would like them if you played them. Like, I know I would like them too. I just got
It's
so many games. It's like I don't need another. trio or however many there are of them that are all like 100-hour games to add to
Mm,
the list.
yeah, you want
Um,
games that respect your time, though. In a sense, don't you?
exactly.
Mm,
But along the lines of a game that, because you were saying it took you a while to get into them. For me, that was the
mm.
Arkham games. I just mentioned this
Oh yeah,
recently because the
I
the
see why
biggest
though.
thing for me, what that drove me nuts when I first played Arkham, and why it took me a while to actually get into them, is because like you're this giant hulking mountain of a man, Batman,
Hmm.
and it's taking you like 10, 12 hits to take out one measly little thug. I'm like, you're freaking
Hmm.
Batman. He should be out in one, maybe two hits. But once
The
I actually
Spider-Man games
started,
have the same problem. The
okay,
Spider-Man games have the same problem.
so that drove me nuts. But once I actually started to understand the combat system, because for the first like couple times I played through Arkham Asylum, I loved the Predator challenges and I hated the combat challenges. But
Hmm.
once I
Those
really got
were
to get
really
it.
bad.
um, and I understood how it worked, and I was like, okay, I get it. Now I really like all
Mm.
of them, and I've played them all multiple times. But yeah, one thing I was just gonna say, wrote it down so I didn't forget, is on the Ninja Gaiden Black release,
Mm.
um, they added two difficulties. They added Ninja Dog mode, which when you first start the game, you only have normal. You can't select any other difficulty. Well, at least if you had a completed game save of Ninja Gaiden when you started Ninja Gaiden Black, you could go straight to hard. But if
Yeah.
not, you had to start on normal. If you died 3 times on the first level, it would pop up and say, "Hey, you sucked. You want to dumb it down to the easy difficulty?" So you could say
Mm.
yes or no. If you say
Doesn't
yes,
that also give you that weird scarf?
it gives you this giant pink ribbon on your wrist for the rest of the game as a mark of shame. Um,
I love when games just didn't give a crap and just mocked you for being crap.
yeah.
It's the same with Devil May Cry 3. The original release was tough as nails. I remember
Okay.
that. I played it on normal. I died so many times, and then after a while, Capcom was like, "Hey, you suck. You want to play? Might want to play on easy." I was like, "No, I'm not going to play on easy.
Yeah, screw
Screw
you.
you."
I'm gonna get better.
It's funny
But
how games used to actively mock the players. I
yeah.
love that so much.
But yeah, and then they added Master Ninja difficulty. But
Ooh.
in
I
the
heard things about that mode. Oh,
and you
makes
had
my
to
skin
beat
crawl.
the you couldn't just go straight to it. You had to beat the previous one. So in order to get hard, you had to beat normal. In order to get very hard, you had to beat hard. In order to get Master Ninja, you had to beat very hard. I unlocked
Mm.
Master Ninja mode. I beat very hard, and boy, that is the hardest thing I've ever done in a video game in my life. Um,
Oof.
and
I dread to
be,
think how that feels like in that game because I've seen people play it. I'm like, how? You need like crazy reflexes for that one.
and that's why like people are like, oh, Dark Souls is insanely difficult. Coming from a Ninja Gaiden background, I think Dark Souls is going to be easy
I
because
think you
Ninja Gaiden
will find it easier. Yeah.
is incredibly fast paced. Like if you're not constantly moving and you stop moving for literally a half a second, you're taking damage.
Yep.
So whereas Dark Souls is much slower paced. So um,
I would say
I'll see how
it's.
I like it when I actually get into it. But
I'm trying to think of the word now. I think Dark Souls is a lot more methodical in a way because you have to really think about, or you have to remember where the enemy placement in some areas when you die, because when you die, everything resets in the area.
right, yeah,
So
that
you have to remember the placement of the enemies.
yeah, Ninja Gaiden
And
doesn't
take
do that other
no.
than um in Ninja Gaiden. Well, that and one of the reasons why I like Ninja Gaiden Black a little bit better than Ninja Gaiden 2, both
Right.
fantastic games. Ninja Gaiden 2 is a completely linear level. You go from level to
Mhm.
level, point A to point B. Ninja Gaiden Black is basically a Metroidvania hack and slash. I didn't realize this for years because that's my genre of expertise is Metroidvania. I'm a huge Metroidvania
Mhm.
enthusiast now. I wasn't back then, but I have since because that's become like my genre. And
Mhm.
thinking about it, I'm like, Ninja Gaiden Black is basically a Metroidvania. The only real argument for it not being a Metroidvania is that you don't get there's no ability gating, meaning in most
Mhm.
Metroidvanias you get you'll be going through and you'll be like, oh, I know that I can't reach that area right now, but I know I'm going to get an upgrade or something later on, then I'll be able to reach that area. You don't ever
Hmm.
have that in Ninja Gaiden Black. There are areas that you can't reach yet, but it's only because you need to go through a path and hit a button or a switch that unlocks the door.
Hmm.
But
The developers of speaking of Metroidvania, the creators of Ori announced a new game at the Game Awards as well.
I
I
have
just
not
remembered.
seen the trailer yet, but I was listening to it and I was like, and
I
someone
heard
said Moon Studios,
it's
and I was like,
Moon
Moon
Studios.
Studios? I need to go watch that trailer. I still haven't watched it yet, but Ori in
It's
the Will
called
of the Wisps is my favorite
yeah.
Metroidvania of all time. So I'm very much
It's a
looking
great
forward
game. It is
to
a great game.
whatever Moon Studios does next.
It's
But that's
called No
why
Rest for the Wicked. It's coming. There's more info coming out on March 1st next year. They
sweet.
have more
Okay.
info then.
I'm definitely gonna be
So
watching that trailer tonight before I go to bed. No
and that's
rest.
the developers of Dead Cells announced a new game as well.
Okay,
But
cool. I was actually just
so
playing Dead Cells a couple days ago as part of
it's
my
interesting
12
how
days of
many
Christmas.
reveals we had. I think it's
Uh,
just a shame that a lot of these games are for 2025, but considering how many games we're actually getting next year, I'm actually kind of glad that not everything is releasing next year.
yeah.
I mean, February alone is going to be a busy month for me because Persona 3 Reload is coming out at the beginning of the month, and at the end of the month, I'm getting Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. So that's quite a busy month for JRPG fans.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not for everyone, granted, but I'm really looking forward to Rebirth though because I've played over 200 hours in Remake.
Nice.
That was just two playthroughs, the normal one and the hard mode one, because hard mode changes the game drastically when you play it.
That's another thing that was amazing about Ninja Gaiden Black. So but that's basically the reason why I like Ninja Gaiden Black a little bit better than Ninja Gaiden 2 is because it's a interconnected world, and there's one level that you can't go back to because it's takes place in an airship that it's like the third level in the game. And
Yeah, that's the third one. Yeah,
you burn it down, and so it no longer exists. But basically, the
which
entire
makes
rest
sense.
of the
Yeah.
game you can go back and forth to at any time. And that's why I was saying when you were talking about enemy spawns, is that sometimes you'll go through an area and you'll fight some enemies, but if you come back to it, if you've cleared that area, no enemies will spawn. But if you come back to that area maybe a couple chapters later, there may be a new set of enemies there that weren't the same as the ones you fought earlier. And the really cool thing that I have not seen probably like any other game do is that hard mode doesn't just like make you take more damage or deal less damage. It doesn't just make the enemies stronger or you weaker. It actually changes what enemies you fight in your playthrough. So the enemies that you'll fight on hard are different enemies than in normal, and they're better. And then
I would say the difficulties are like the new randomizers in that game, because you get these games that have randomizers where you take like random characters and place them somewhere else, or random enemies. That's what the difficulty thing was back in the day. Or you have like tougher versions of the enemies, but they you don't normally see.
Yeah, so there may be enemies on very hard that you don't even see in the game on hard or normal, or there may be enemies that you see much later in the game on normal, very early on hard. So that was a cool concept that I have not seen in probably like any other game.
See, I've played a few games on higher difficulties. Like I think the one that jumps to mind, which was much recently, was Uncharted 4. I've played it on crushing difficulty. I have this funny thing about games like that, though. I tend to beat the final boss first and then play the rest of the game, because then I am not as I don't know why I do that. My brain is just working like that. Well, you have a chapter select for most of these games when you beat them once, right?
Oh,
so what I did was I select the final chapter where the final boss is, for example, and defeat the final boss first to get accustomed to like the difficulty of the game, right?
It's like reading the last chapter of a book and then reading from the beginning.
Yeah, exactly. It's a weird thing, isn't it? But I did that with Final Fantasy VII Remake. I'm doing it wrong, yeah. I did that with Uncharted 4, and I surprisingly beat it within 5 tries, and then I played the rest of the game. But the thing is with Uncharted 4 that you can actually activate cheat codes, which is a bit cheap when you really think about it, because that just cheapens the experience, because you can add infinite ammo or do like a bullet time mode when you shoot. But with Final Fantasy VII Remake, there's an interesting twist to hard mode. You can't use healing items outside of battle, or generally, you can't use healing items. So you have to be very careful how you go about the battles in that
You
game.
can only use healing items while you're in battle.
Let me think. No,
Or
wait,
is it?
no, that was a different game. No, you can't use healing items. Period. You can't use them.
Oh
The
my
the
goodness.
only way you can heal yourself is sitting on a bench, and that only heals your HP. So you have to be very very thoughtful of your resources and how you go about with using spells and all that stuff. I mean, you get like the odd healing item every once in a while, with like these little orbs that are on the map that give you like a little bit of MP back, but you have to really carefully think about how you go about going into battles and all that stuff.
Okay.
But I like that because it gave me an extra challenge that I didn't know I needed, and it gives you an incentive to play on hard mode, because there's like scripts that you get or you can unlock to give you a bit of the story or background to it that you can only unlock on that difficulty.
Okay.
And it even gives you an extra boss battle towards the end. That's the only
Cool.
way you can get Bahamut in that game. It's ridiculous. But Ninja Gaiden is an interesting one for me, because I didn't put two and two together until I played, like, I think it was Dead or Alive 2. That
Oh, that's the
it
same
is actually
franchise.
connected with the Dead or Alive series, because I
Ryu
didn't
is in
put
it.
two and two together. That Ryu is actually the protagonist of those games, and he's actually in that series as well. It took me a long
Ayane is
time back in the
in
day.
both as well.
And she berates you when you when you're terrible at the game. I remember that one, and she never lets you hear at the end of that one.
Yeah, well, in Ninja Gaiden Black, when I was telling you die too many times on the first level, and it asks you, it says like, you suck. Do you want to lower the difficulty? It's Ayane that comes in and like, berates
She
you, and then
berates you. Mm.
yeah.
Progress.
But
I love
I'm
it.
looking because I haven't played. Oh, that was another thing I was going to say earlier, is because Ninja Gaiden Black, well, Ninja Gaiden and Ninja Gaiden Black was an original Xbox game
Mm.
before achievements existed, and I'm a
Oh,
achievement hunter and a completionist, so I have no
right.
achievement to show for it. I did play Ninja Gaiden 2, and I beat it on normal and hard, but I have not. I still need to. I don't think I'll ever beat it on Master Ninja, but
Mm.
from what I hear, Ninja Gaiden 2 on Master Ninja is easier than Ninja Gaiden Black on Master Ninja, but I still don't think I'll ever do that. But I do still need to go
how does
back.
that work then?
Um,
Did they do tweaks to it that is easier, or how does that work exactly?
One of the big things that they changed between Ninja Gaiden Black and Ninja Gaiden 2 is on Ninja Gaiden Black, the only way to restore your health is either consumable items or getting to a save, the little dragon statues that are your save points.
Mm.
And when you go and activate them, it restores your health, but it only does it once. They're green. Once you've
Interesting.
used it, it turns red. You can then go back to it and save, but it will not give you your health back again.
So it's like regular checkpoints. Then, if you go back to it,
Yeah, you can always go
oh,
back and save, but it won't give you your health.
right.
It'll only give you your health the very first time you use it. So if you do really well, you may want to not save it so that you can save it for health for later. If you don't want to use your consumables.
So it kind of teaches you to be smart about your healing a little bit.
Yes, because another thing, on the higher difficulty, the more expensive items get. So, and what
Makes
you
sense,
really
yeah.
need to do on those higher difficulties is you need to, because the biggest thing to spend your money on, obviously, of course, is consumables at different stores. But the other thing that you want to use them on is upgrading. You don't have to do all of your weapons, but one of the things that Ninja Gaiden 2 did better is that it's a little more well-rounded on your weapons. There are some weapons that are better for some enemies, but you can legitimately play through the entire game with any of the weapons. Technically, you could do that in Ninja Gaiden / Ninja Gaiden Black as well, but you're going to have a much harder time if you don't use if you don't use specifically some weapons for some enemies, because
Right.
like using your standard sword on some of the bigger enemies, it's just going to take forever to kill the enemy, and you're just going to, unless you're like godlike, you're going to probably taking a lot more damage. Whereas you may pulling out like the giant sword is slow, but it does so much damage that it doesn't take very many hits to kill these enemies. So that's one of the other big things is that some weapons are way more useful at certain points than others in the first one than the second one. Whereas in the second one, all of them are more well-rounded that you could use all of them on pretty much any of the enemies. But the other big change, the biggest change where I was going with that is the health system. How the only way to restore it is either using a consumable or your save point. In Ninja Gaiden 2, how it worked is as you take damage, you'll and your health bar starts pretty short, but you get a bunch of items that expand, make your health bar longer. And by the end of the game, if you've gotten everything, your health bar is almost the width of the screen. But
it's pretty funny.
As you take damage, you'll see the far right of your health bar starts turning red. And how it worked is that at the end of every encounter, your health would automatically refill, but it would only refill up to that point where the red part is. And the more damage you take, the bigger that bar gets. So if you take so much damage, at the end of the fight, you're only going to get half your health back, or however big that red bar has grown. It could be, like 75% of the screen, you only have 25% of your health, and you have to use your healing items to get that bar back down. So that's the biggest change in the game, is how the health system worked.
Interesting. Okay.
So because of that change, apparently Ninja Gaiden 2 is a bit on Master Ninja is a bit easier than Ninja Gaiden Black on Master Ninja.
Well, it's a bit more, it seems a bit more forgiving in a way.
It is. Yeah. But I do plan to go back and do Ninja Gaiden 2 on Mentor, which is the very hard difficulty. I just don't know when I'm ever going to do it. I don't ever plan to do Master Ninja. But on Ninja Gaiden Black, when I was following the development of the game before it was released, and they were talking about how I think it was in the Xbox magazine or whatever, and I was reading about the changes that they're making to it, and that they're adding these new difficulties, and the developers were approximating that only about 1,000 people would be able to beat Ninja Gaiden Black on Master Ninja because it's that difficult. And I was like, I'm gonna be one of those 1,000. I'm sure there's probably a lot more than 1,000 now, because that game was 2001. No, that would have been Xbox's launch was in 2001. I want to say it probably came out maybe like 2004, maybe 2005 would be my guess. At least Black did. Because it came out a couple years after the original one. So I beat very hard, and I started at Master Ninja, and my God, it was insanely difficult. And I gave up on it.
The original came out 2004.
Oh, okay.
Black, let me see when Black came out.
My guess would be 2006 then.
It must be like 2 years apart, I think.
No,
yeah.
It had to have been before that, because it had to have been
2005. 2005.
I was going to say, it had to have been 2005 because late 2005 is when the 360 came out. And I got it early 2006 because it was sold out everywhere. It took me a while to find one.
It was very hard to get one.
But yeah. Oh, yeah. So I beat very hard and started up Master Ninja. And after I don't know how many attempts, the farthest I ever got was I got within viewing range of the very first save statue that I was just telling you about that restores your health. I could see it, but there was a combat encounter right before it. And when you're in a combat encounter, you can't save. You have to beat the encounter in order to activate the statue. And I died in that encounter. And I was just like, this is too hard. I gave up on
that must be.
Yeah, because the checkpoints in that game are not terribly close together, so you have to go through quite a few combat encounters, and it took me a long time just to get to that point, and I was just like, nope, I'm done. I'm not going to beat it on Master Ninja. So I never even got to the first save statue. It was so difficult because the first two enemies you even fight on Master Ninja are enemies that don't even show up on normal or even hard. I think you only saw them on very hard, and
very hard. Yeah,
their swords do fire damage over time. So at the very beginning of your game, you have no combos, so you can only do like 2 or 3 hits at a time, and your health bar is like super short. One hit from the sword will literally take off half your health. So you can take like 2 hits before you die. And you have no healing items because it's the very beginning of the game. You have nothing. And it took me a while just to get past those 2 first guys. And then you have to go through like 3 or 4 more encounters with even more enemies just to get to that first save station. And yeah, I got to that point and I was like, nope, this is not for me. But I did beat it on very hard and I'm very proud of that. But I have the Master Ninja collection, which is Ninja Gaiden Sigma 1, Sigma 2.
I was just about to ask you about those because I noticed them on the marketplace and I was curious about how you feel about those actually.
And it's Sigma 1 and 2, and it's just Ninja Gaiden 3 Razor's Edge, which Ninja Gaiden 3, the original release, was garbage. It was terrible. They re-released it as a new game, Ninja Gaiden 3 Razor's Edge, with everything that they stripped out of the original release of Ninja Gaiden 3. Supposedly it's really good. I've started it. I've only beaten like the first 2 levels. I have not seen any changes in it from the original release, so I don't know when the changes start showing up. But as for Sigma 1 and Sigma 2, I have them, but I have not played them yet. But from everything that I've seen online, the original versions of Ninja Gaiden Black and 2 are better than Sigma 1 and Sigma 2. I don't know why, because there's a lot more stuff in it. There's new characters you can play as. There's new game modes you can play as. So, and there's even additional bosses that they added in that weren't in the original ones. So it would make sense that those ones are the better versions. But from all the hardcore Ninja Gaiden fans, they say that Ninja Gaiden Black and Ninja Gaiden 2 are better than Sigma 1 and Sigma 2. But I'm
interesting, though,
so
that they would think that. I mean, I've heard things about Ninja Gaiden 3 when it came out that it wasn't exactly the most popular of these 3 games. I've heard like that it had its own issues in a way. And I saw that the collection is on like Game Pass as well.
Yeah, all 3 of them are on Game Pass. But I do own them. And I will play them at some point, and then I'll be able to determine which one I think is better. But yeah, the original release of Ninja Gaiden 3, basically they took out, so Ninpo is like your magic, and you get there's like 5 or 6 different ones. There's like a fire one, there's an ice one, there's like a black hole one, there's a lightning one. They took that all out. As I was saying, there's like 7 or 8 different weapons. They took that all out. The only thing you have is the sword. They took out one of the cool things that they added in Ninja Gaiden 2 was obliteration technique. So if you which wasn't in Ninja Gaiden Black, but if you, because Ninja Gaiden 2 went over the top with the gore, it's amazing. So
I remember that it was heavily censored over here.
Oh yeah, I bet it was, because you can sever all sorts of limbs. You can cut off arms and legs, and they'll keep coming at you. Obviously, you can decapitate enemies. Obviously, they're actually dead at that point. They won't keep fighting you. But if you cut off their arms or legs, they'll still keep coming for you. But if you have an enemy that's missing a limb, you can hit Y, which is the heavy attack, and it'll go into a short animation of like some brutal execution. It was great. They got rid of that in Ninja Gaiden 3. They also got rid of the ultimate techniques, which is where you can either in Ninja Gaiden Black and 2, if you just hold Y, you'll start charging it up, and after like 3 seconds, you'll hit level 1, and like another 2 seconds, or it might even be 1.5 seconds and then 3 seconds. It's you'll hit level 2, and if you do it, you'll go into a really awesome like not a
frenzy
finisher.
mode.
Yeah, it goes in. It takes control away from you, but he does like these really, depending on what weapon you're holding, because each weapon has a different combo. But he'll go into some sort of awesome combo. It doesn't always kill the enemy. Some of them are like a bunch of hits on one enemy. Sometimes it'll hit a bunch of different enemies. Just depends on what weapon you're holding. But in combat, you will never, ever, 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 ever be able to stand there long enough to charge it, because like I said earlier, if you're standing still for like a half a second, you're taking damage, which will knock you out of that charge attack. The only way you're going to pull it off is as you kill enemies, they release little orbs, and if there's one, if you hit your charge attack and there's one of them, it'll immediately get you to the level 1 attack. But if there's 2 of them, then it'll immediately get you to your level 2 attack. So if you kill 2 enemies and there's 2 of them, you can absorb them and go directly into an ultimate technique.
Okay.
They took that out of Ninja Gaiden 3 as well, and they took out everything that made Ninja Gaiden in Ninja Gaiden 3, but they added it all back in Razor's Edge supposedly. So
interestingly, I'm hearing interesting things about these Sigma versions of the game. Apparently, they toned down the gore a little bit, and also they lowered the amount of enemies that you have in the game. I think that was the biggest gripe that a lot of people had, and that's why people hated the Sigma versions of the game a lot.
I have heard that they are easier than the original releases. Maybe that's why people say they're not as good, as they're too easy for a Ninja Gaiden game.
Interestingly enough, I'm reading reports about the censorship that they used to do in my home country, and they essentially it was not only for adults only back in the day. So it was pretty much a death sentence for the game because you couldn't sell it.
I've never even seen a game with an adults only rating, but I could understand it on
GTA.
Oh, did GTA get an adult
San Andreas?
Oh, San because Andreas of the hot coffee mod.
Yep.
Okay, I know of it, but I've never played in San Andreas.
The only one that springs to mind is Manhunt. I think that's got an adults only rating as well.
That would make sense. I've never played that
granted, Manhunt is banned in a lot of countries as well. So
yeah, given some of those countries that are very strict about those things, it would definitely make sense that they gave it an AO rating over a mature rating here in the States.
I remember that Manhunt 1 never made it here because it was too graphic for the time. And I think 2 only made it over to Germany in a censored fashion. Like there were some weird filters played over the executions and all that stuff. It was the weirdest thing. And also, what really grinds my gears is the censorship in Devil May Cry 5. For some reason, Sony with the galaxy brain that they are sometimes, decided to make censorship on a naked ass in two scenes.
Yeah, I've seen those clips.
Funnily enough, it's only in the European versions, not in the US ones.
Right, yeah, I've heard that.
They never changed that. Allegedly, the Xbox version was uncensored for a while, but I can't confirm that because I own the definitive version on both Xbox X and also on PS5, and it's still there. So, I don't know. Devil May Cry 5 is an interesting one when it comes to difficulty scaling, because you were mentioning like Ninja Gaiden and all that. And Devil May Cry works in a similar fashion because you start with I think it was human difficulty. That's like the normal difficulty that you work with. And you can slowly work your way up to, I think it was Hell in Hell. I think that's the highest one that you can get. And it works in a similar fashion to what you were mentioning with the enemy placement.
Okay.
You get like late game enemies much earlier. And also that the healing is very scarce. Like you get less healing items, and it kind of encourages you to be more on the offense and be more aggressive towards your enemies in a way.
Yeah,
and also the bosses do get like new attacks and all that stuff. It's ridiculous.
Oh, new attacks! Interesting. That
new attacks, and you lose like a lot more health when you get hit.
Okay, that just reminded me of another thing of the difference in difficulties on Ninja Gaiden is that the bosses are exactly the same. However, as I was mentioning this, I think when Melee K was on, or it might have been a Town Square or something. But anyways, when you play on normal, it's just you and the boss. But if you play on hard, it's you and the boss and 2 basically fodder minion enemies. And the higher the difficulty you get, those little fodder enemies become stronger and stronger. So on very hard, not only are you fighting the boss, but you're fighting some high level and non-boss enemies at the same time, which is both a good and a bad thing because If you're really good, you can then kill them, and you can, the orbs that I mentioned will be there. Unfortunately, they don't stay there very long.
Mhm.
But you could then use that to do an ultimate technique on the boss. And when you do the ultimate techniques, you're invincible because it takes control away from you, so you can't
Mhm.
take damage, which is nice.
Would be silly if you would take damage in that moment, though.
Yeah,
Imagine you don't have control over something, then you get attacked, and you're like, "Wait a minute, I didn't decide to do this. Why are
some
you
games
punishing me?"
are some games are don't think that out, and they do that,
Yeah,
but um, yeah, because
I remember.
you're never gonna be able to, like I said, you're never gonna be able to stay there long enough to charge it up manually on a boss,
Mm,
because they're only down for a couple seconds, then they're back up again. So if you could
yeah,
kill those guys and then get the boss down and then do that, you can do a nice combo and do a good chunk of their health before they get back up. But you gotta be really
I
good to do
rem-
that.
I remember because you were talking about co-op games back in the day because you say you more of a solo player, right?
Yeah.
So I remember because you brought up Gears of War earlier. Um, Surprisingly, that was one of the very few games I actually decided to play in co-op back in the day on console and online as well. So my cousin and I usually got the game around the same time, and we always played them together. We started with normal difficulty and then worked our way up to the highest difficulty. I think it was
Insane
Insanity,
or insanity.
Insane. Yeah,
It's one of those derivations
one of the two. Yeah.
of
So
insane.
we always said like we're working ourselves up to Insane, and then play that together as well. So with the first three games, we beat all three games on the highest difficulty.
I've done
Then we did
Gears 1 and
the
2 on Insane, but I haven't done Gears 3 on Insane.
three is surprisingly easy
Hmm.
compared to one and two because I think one is very unforgiving in that sense because it wasn't programmed very well.
I remember
That's what I remember.
the only thing I remember about Insane being really difficult was on the final boss fight versus Ram
Yep.
because of the freaking krill. But other
It's
than that, I
freaking
don't remember
krill.
the game being too terribly difficult on Insane. But that boss fight was a pain.
That boss fight took us forever. I think we spent almost one night trying to defeat Ram, but we just couldn't do it. And then we were like, you know what, screw it. We're just gonna have a lie down and try it the next morning. So we did that, and we actually defeated Ram in the first try.
Nice. Don't you love
After that,
that? It's like you give up and then you
that
come back and do it
was
the
a very
first time.
rewarding thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I've had that a number of times where it's like, this is too hard, I give up. Then you come back like a day or a week later, whatever, and you beat it first try. It's like, oh, are you kidding me? I spent like
It's
3 hours on
interesting.
that.
It's interesting how much fatigue can affect your performance levels in a game as well. Because I noticed that I was getting cranky and a little bit more tired towards the end. I was like, maybe we should just stop for today. But then again, I was too stubborn to just give up and just try again the next day. Right?
Yep, I know what
That
you
was
mean.
that was the biggest issue. So we we then came back and actually defeated Ram the next day. Surprisingly, when you play the new release of one, they
Here's
changed
Ultimate.
the boss battle ultimate. Yeah,
I played that
It's-
one.
the ultimate one is okay. I feel like that insane difficulty is fine.
I did not play the Gears Ultimate on Insane, so I don't know. I think we played it on
It
normal.
works. It works surprisingly well. I would say. I don't know why if they tweaked something, but I feel like it was a bit more
Balance.
balanced in a way.
Okay. Yeah, I probably need to. Being a
Gears 3 was fun
completionist, I
though.
still got a lot to do on the Gears Insane, and I still got Gears Ultimate Collection, and I
Mhm.
still have a ton to do in Gears 3. I'm never gonna get the completion because I'm never gonna go for
That game's
seriously.
impossible to complete. That
So
game's impossible.
one of the things I was gonna mention earlier, I don't remember what it was about, but I was gonna when you're talking about Devil May Cry, because one of my
Mm.
buddies who I do we just did our second episode of Achievement Chasers because he's an achievement hunter like me, dude
Mhm.
1286. He just started streaming one of the DMCs just this week. I don't remember which one,
Right.
but he has Seriously 1.0, Seriously 2.0, and Seriously 3.0, and he has 100%
Damn.
completion in the Master Chief Collection.
100% completion in the Mass Effect Master Chief Collection.
All 700
the
achievements, which includes all the Lasso playlists.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah. So
I mean, that's insane. That's
Yes.
literally insane.
So I've got a higher gamer score than him, but he's got a higher ratio because he has a higher average of difficult achievements.
Mm,
But yeah, we've done two. It's a monthly thing we do at the beginning of
mm,
each month. But yeah, he's got some nuts achievements that on his profile. So yeah, he knows about the DMC stuff you were talking about and the Gears seriously, which I may get Gears seriously 2.0 because that one you can do
mm.
solo, but Gears 1 and 3 requires way too much multiplayer, so I will never do
Yeah,
those.
that's what put me off Gears for a while as well, because it got a bit too multiplayer heavy for me.
They have maybe more than
I don't
half
know
the
what it is. My
achievements
brain
in
is
like
just working in a weird way there. I don't know why it does that.
that's why I never intended to start playing Gears 3 because of the
Mm,
achievements. I haven't played 4 and 5 because of that. Because I hate their developers and how evil they are with their achievements. Seriously 5 has 2 seriously achievements. And they released
mm,
the second one like a year after the game came out. And I don't
yep.
believe any of your progress that you'd previously done counted for it. So you were starting
Yep.
basically from scratch. It's like,
Yeah, to
screw
start from
you guys.
scratch. Mm,
So I accidentally started Gears 3 because I was playing on an alternate profile and then I logged in to my profile
mm.
accidentally and it immediately popped an achievement on Gears 3 and I was so mad. So I've got a lot of work to do just to get my completion up in that game. But
I would say Gears 3 overall is more manageable, but the online achievements, they're just taking the piss.
I do
Honestly,
basically I plan to get all the single player stuff. I'm definitely
yeah.
not going to bother with the multiplayer stuff unless I can get a boosting group, but I don't even really care because
I'm,
I hate Gears multiplayer. I hate it. So
mm,
I do like the
I'm not a
co-op.
fan either.
I like the
The
co-op
co-op is good.
aspect.
The co-op is really good. Yeah.
But yeah, I hate the
Especially in free,
multiplayer.
and when you play the horde mode and all that stuff, or generally the campaign, it is much more fun with friends, obviously, because you can play with up to, I think it was 3 or 4 people in the campaign
Gears
at some
1,
points.
you could do 2 people.
Two,
Gears
yeah, two. It was just the same, I think.
yeah, you know what? I think you're right. I think Gears 1 and 2 were 2-player, but Gears 3 and on was up to 4-player.
Yeah,
And
I
yeah,
mean, Gears 5 is pretty easy compared to like the other compared to the original trilogy, but the online achievements are ridiculous.
yeah.
I don't know what these developers are thinking, or
They're
how much
masochists.
free time you have to
They're
have.
like, you
Yeah,
will play
masochist.
our game and only our game and no other games.
Yep,
It's like,
that's
screw
pretty much
you. I
the
want to play other
approach.
stuff.
Mm.
So
That's
why I
the
haven't
approach
played
that
the newer
Activision takes with Call of Duty, basically.
one.
It's
But
it's funny. I don't know if I mentioned that last time we were on air. Activision has this weird philosophy with their games that they make them deliberately big so that you can't install other games on your console.
dude, when they added Modern Warfare 3 as an addition to Modern Warfare 2 and not its own game, I was like, are you freaking kidding me? You
Hmm.
guys suck. I hate
They
you.
they do that deliberately, man. They do that
Fortunately,
deliberately so you can't install other games.
you can install certain aspects of it, but
Mm,
it doesn't separate the achievements. If you had 100% in Modern Warfare 2, now in
yep.
order to regain that 100%, you have to 100% Modern Warfare 3 as well.
Yep.
So put it as a separate game, you asshats.
Yeah. I don't understand why they don't do it that way.
It's
I was
scummy.
pretty
I hate
pissed.
that.
I found out that Alucard from Helsing, the anime, was actually a skin in Warzone, and then they added Spawn as well. I was like,
Oh, I
what
didn't know
the
about
hell?
the Alucard one, but I did know about Spawn.
And Alucard looked pretty close to the Helsing anime as well, like the with the cell shading effects and all that stuff. I was like, damn. So you put Spawn and Alucard in the same game? You bastards. I was pissed. But then again, that's like the Fortnite effect, like having all these guest characters now.
Yep.
I mean,
Yeah,
granted, I don't
Fortnite
understand why.
popularized it. That's how they keep it relevant.
The thing is, I don't understand how. I mean, granted, with fighting games, I can understand why they do it because guest characters just bring more people in. With Fortnite, however, it's like this multimedia juggernaut now because you've got anime characters, you've got Lego, you've got
Yeah.
bloody
Yeah,
Lego.
literally.
The Rocket League is now a thing as well.
That's right. I saw that tonight. Yeah. And
And
they've got
allegedly, if you
basically,
have Rocket League, you can actually get your cars into that Fortnite mode now, so you can actually drive your cars in that game too. I'm like,
and yeah, they've
why?
got literally every franchise
It is
imaginable
ridiculous.
represented by skins in the game.
Yeah, that's the new form of corporatism, I suppose.
That's well, Fortnite's leading the way on well-supported, never-ending live service games. That's for
it,
sure.
if somebody would have said to me like 4 or 5 years ago that like some anime characters like Goku and all that stuff would be in Fortnite, I would have laughed them out of the room. And nowadays, you're looking at the list of characters that are actually in Fortnite. You're like, damn, what else can they add?
Yeah, it's like, what haven't you guys put in the game by now?
I heard the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are coming next. So
I'm
yeah,
surprised they haven't already done that.
nah, I'm surprised as well. By the way, if you haven't played it yet, give that Ninja Turtles game a chance.
Oh,
It's
Shredder's
pretty cool.
Revenge.
Yeah, it's really good. You
I
can play
play.
with up to 5 people.
I thought
Five,
I'm pretty. Is it 5? I thought it was 6.
five people, 5 people. I think it
But
was
yeah,
5. Yeah.
I want to say it was 6, but yeah, we played that on a Melee Games community event where they did
Mhm.
a month or so ago, maybe 2 months ago.
Mhm.
They did one night for Steam players and one night for Xbox players because it's on Game Pass. So,
Yeah.
that was fun. But
I
yeah,
think it was like
I know it's more than 4.
local co-op was 2. Local co-op was like 2, I think. Online was like 4 to 5 people. Or was it 6? No, it's actually 6. You're right. I'm just seeing it.
I
It's 6
was like,
people.
I'm almost positive it was 6. But
Yeah, it was 6. Yeah, because of all the characters you can play, it's like 6. It is kind of insane though, because it is insanely fun with all these people. And I'm kind of glad that what Sega did today. They revealed like a lot of games coming back,
yeah,
and also which one was it? They did crazy. They wanted to do Crazy
Crazy
Taxi.
Taxi,
Jet Set Radio is coming
Jet Set
back.
Radio.
I think
Yep.
that was mainly because of the success of Bump Rush Cyberpunk or whatever it was called.
Bump Rush.
What was the other game called again?
There's
Tenchu. What was
there's
the
Shinobi.
Shinobi? Shinobi's coming back.
That looks dope.
That looks sick. That looks sick.
Out of all those ones, I'm like, okay, Shinobi's got my
Shinobi
has my
looks
attention.
really good. I'm quite excited for that one.
And
I think it's
another
not.
one was it Gauntlet or was it Golden Axe? It was
The
Golden Axe.
Golden Axe. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and
That one was
Streets of
outsourced.
Rage, I think.
See, Streets of Rage, I'm skeptical about because Streets of Rage 4 was really good.
I've heard it was good.
But
Yeah.
the other one they've shown, I was like,
Yeah, because
not too
Streets of
sure
Rage
about that
4
one.
was basically like the typical, essentially it's a 2D beat 'em up. I mean, it's
Yep.
not because you can go from the top of the screen and closer and farther from the screen, but essentially it's a 2D one. This one actually looked like it was actually in a 3D environment.
The developers of Streets of Rage 4 also did Shredder's Revenge, so you can see like the
Oh,
connections there.
that makes a lot of sense.
It's pretty cool, and I think those guys are also making the new Shinobi game because the style is very similar. But I kind of like that.
I know the older Shinobi's games weren't, but this new one looks like it might be, and I'm really crossing my fingers. I'm really hoping it's a Metroidvania. That'd be awesome.
Have you played The Messenger by chance?
I have. I played it twice because it was on Xbox and on Windows.
I actually like that a lot.
Yeah, I liked it. A lot of people consider it like their favorite or in the top. I don't consider it in the top echelon of Metroidvanias, but it was enjoyable, and I did
fun.
like it.
It's fun. I like the humor in that game as well. It's
Yeah,
like very meta,
great.
but
very meta.
It's
The switching back and forth between like the past, which is 8-bit, and the future, which is 16-bit, was pretty cool. It had great music.
That's a cool gimmick.
That was a great thing about it was the music. But yeah, it was enjoyable. I liked it, but I wouldn't say it was in the top.
That studio also did Sea of Stars.
That's right. Yeah, because I remember, but right when Sea of Stars was coming out, I didn't know anything about it. I just heard there was a game called Sea of Stars coming out, and it was by the same developers that did The Messenger. I'm like, oh, sweet, new Metroidvania. And then I looked it up, and I'm like, oh, it's a turn-based JRPG.
Yep.
So I know everyone says it's great who loves JRPGs, but I don't like JRPGs, so I have zero interest in it.
I started playing it for the gaming channel, but I only played like 3 hours of it so far. But the thing for me was I liked it, but I didn't want to get like too used to playing it. If that makes sense. Like I didn't want to get burned out by it too quickly.
Okay.
That's the problem I have nowadays with RPGs. I need to play them like in chunks,
Spread them out a bit.
and then spread them out a little bit, and then come back and play them again. Even though that makes it a bit difficult to follow story wise, but
I
luckily most games have this thing of catching up where you last left off, or sometimes I just watch like the videos again, so I remember what I did before. That was the problem that I used to have with Fable. I had like a save file and I loaded it and I'm like, crap, what did I do last time?
I had
It's
not
so
to
bad.
forgetting. Yeah, on big games like that, if you leave it for a while and then come back to it later, and you're like, I have no idea what I'm supposed to be doing right now. It's like I might as well
Mm,
start the game over again. Not
yep.
in that aspect, but the one you said that right before that, where you get burned out on it, so you kind of need to spread it out a little bit. I had that problem with Fallout 3 because I played it about
Oh
40
yeah.
hours in the first week that it came out,
Yep.
and I loved it, but I basically burned myself out on it because I
Yep.
just, I just played it so much. But it was a great game.
That's why variety is key sometimes. You have to like have multiple games going or at your disposal so you don't get burned out too quickly, so you can interchange them every once in a while. I had that problem with the original Halo back in the day because I got an Xbox 360, so I thought like might as well get Halo 1 and 2 as well. So I played Halo 1 for, I think, just exclusively just on that console for like months. And then after a while I was like, man, I need another game.
Was it before Halo 3 came out?
That was way before Halo 3 came
Okay.
out. Yeah,
Okay.
much earlier. But it was fun. But I remember then replaying Halo 2 when the anniversary collection came out. Like when you could jump between the old and the new graphics,
Oh, that was pretty cool.
that was mind blowing.
Yeah, it's like wow,
The,
this is what it
the
used to look like. Because
yeah,
a lot of people didn't like it because they did a lot to the lighting. I liked it because I didn't
I liked
realize
it.
it until playing basically the remastered version and going back to
Mhm.
the old one. It's like wow, this game is a lot darker than I remember it being. So
Yeah,
I'm glad that they
it
lightened
really
it up
was.
because you can actually see stuff now.
But the interesting thing is, Halo 2 came out when again, like 2008
No, Halo 2 was
or much
2004,
4. Was it 4?
and then
Yeah,
Halo 3
because
was 2007, the greatest year in gaming of all time.
yes. I'm just trying to think when did Gears of War come out? The first one. That was
2005.
2005, I
I think it
think,
was a
right?
launch. No, it wasn't a launch title. Never mind. So it wasn't 2005. It was probably
Poof,
2000. Was it 2007 as well?
2006. That came out
2006. That sounds
2006.
right.
But funnily enough, that was the era where everything had all these brownish colors going on all the time.
Everything
Oh,
was those
I
muted
hated
colors,
that so much.
those
I
muted
hated that so
grays and
much.
browns.
Yeah, because we were spoiled with the color palette in like Halo, and then you go to a kind of game where all sorts of shades of brown, didn't it? Then
Yeah, that was
there was
like
this weird
every
trend
game
going
around
on that
that
everything
time.
has to be brown. It's like, why?
Yeah, where
Why
did
does it
all?
have to be
Why
that
is the
way?
color gone?
Yeah, that didn't make any sense to me.
That's basic. I actually said this too very recently. Um,
Hmm.
but like, if I have the choice between sci-fi and fantasy, I think I talked about this on open mic with Charlie last week. I
Hmm.
will take sci-fi over fantasy 9 times out of 10.
Hmm.
But
Absolutely.
the best example of when I'll take fantasy over sci-fi is Elder Scrolls over Fallout, just because I like the vibrant. Everything's
Absolutely,
so
yeah.
alive in
It's
the Elder
way
Scrolls
more
games,
colorful.
and Fallout's
Mm,
so dead and muted. But I mean, it needs to be to make it feel the way it should. But that's
right.
the main reason why I would, if I had to choose between like Fallout 3 is Skyrim, I'm gonna go with Skyrim. But basically, any other sci-fi versus
Mhm.
fantasy, like the other big one is like Super Metroid versus Castlevania. I'll take Super Metroid all day long.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah, it's kind of crazy, isn't it? It's like how the color palette of games has changed. Now all of a sudden you have this weird trend of games being super vibrant all of a sudden again.
yeah,
Then I think a couple of years later it's going to be all muted again.
it
It,
cycles.
it cycles every single time. It repeats itself constantly as well.
Yeah, the first thing I thought of when you said the bright colorness is Hi-Fi Rush.
Yep. that's one of the most colorful games I've played in years, and that's saying something. And I've played some games in the past, like I mean, the Persona 5 comes to mind because that one's very colorful and artsy as well. But
Yeah,
Hi-Fi
a
Rush
lot of those cell shaded
beats
games are
that out of
very
the park.
colorful.
Yeah, I mean, when we talked about Wind Waker as well, that game was very colorful for its time as well.
Very, and that's and that's one where I didn't want it to be, because the Zelda they
Do you
showed us was
remember?
this dark and brooding fight between Link and Ganon in this dark
Yeah,
castle, and then we got Wind Waker. It's like, what is this crap? This isn't
where
what you
did this
showed.
come from?
So
It's like
that's why
Miyamoto.
I
What
still
happened
have a
there?
bit of a grudge against Wind Waker for that. But I'm glad we got Twilight Princess, because I think Twilight Princess is
Yeah, I think
this
Twilight
close.
Princess compensated a lot for that. I think in the end, because a lot of people weren't exactly pleased with the way Wind Waker was
Yeah, most people have come
came
around
out,
on it
right?
since.
Mm.
But yeah, back then when it was new, it's like a lot of people. The only reason why I even pre-ordered Wind Waker is so I could get the Ocarina of Time Master Quest.
Hmm. I
And
think that's what a lot of people did. I remember my ex girlfriend that I was together with for almost 7 years. She still has that disc, like the box.
I still have mine somewhere too.
It is funny because I don't remember playing Ocarina of Time on the N64 that
Oh,
well,
I
but I
played
do
it
remember the
so many
GameCube version
times.
very well. It's kind of funny.
What
It's also
on
interesting.
episode 1 of Party Chat, I think one of the first things we talked about is what game have you beaten the most times? And
Mm,
Ocarina of Time is up there for one of my most beaten games of all time.
abs-
Hey,
Absolutely, yeah.
your buddy Tomby's here.
Tommy,
What's up, Tomby?
hey, good morning.
Good
Good morning, man.
morning. And one other thing I was just going to say, because Jerry Crow has mentioned this, that he's usually playing RuneScape while he's in chat, but he was talking about
RuneScape. Wow.
dude is the Steve Vai of gaming. He's got huge skills. Dude 1286, my Achievement Chasers partner.
Hmm.
Yeah, because
It,
as I
it
was
is
saying, Lasso
RuneScape.
is with
Wow.
all skulls on every freaking map. So yeah, dude is nuts.
And Halo is a fascinating case study for
Oh,
me.
one quick thing, if you don't mind holding that thought,
Yeah,
because
sure.
I'm saying that I bought Wind Waker. I pre-ordered Wind Waker solely for the Master Quest. Along
Mhm.
those lines, I also pre-ordered Crackdown solely to get access to the Halo 3 beta. And I
Mhm.
fell in love with the Crackdown games. So that was a good thing. I'm glad that happened, because I love the Crackdown games. So
Funnily enough, I recently found out that you can get the first Crackdown game for free
mhm.
nowadays. I didn't even know that. I was just randomly browsing like through my Xbox games. One time I was like, Crackdown. Huh? Okay, weird. I didn't even know I had that.
I have 100% in Crackdown 1 and 3, but I still need to go back and
Damn.
finish Crackdown 2, because there's a bunch of co-op stuff you need like a group of 4 to do.
Mhm.
So I haven't gone back and done that yet.
Crackdown free.
I
Oh boy.
I talk about that often, in that one of those games that I don't think deserves as much hate as it got. It was like, I don't know why everyone was like complaining about it. It's like more of what you would expect from a Crackdown game. It was a lot of
Pretty
fun,
much, yeah.
and it was
It was overmarketed though, in my opinion. It was criminally overmarketed
the
compared
thing.
to like other games that would have deserved more advertising at the time.
I think the biggest sticking point for most people on that is how they were hyping it up as like this new, like next gen example of
Mm.
cloud computing, because
Yep.
basically everything is destructible, kind of like what was that, not armored core, um Red Faction Guerrilla,
Red Faction. Mm.
where you can destroy it, which and that's the thing, is that they did have that, but it was only in the multiplayer, it wasn't in the single player.
Correct.
So I think that's the big thing. But the single player, it was great, and it was a great Crackdown game. So I don't think it deserved as much hate as it got. But yeah, you were going to say something a couple minutes ago.
Yeah, the Halo thing with all these
Yes.
challenges, I was like, man, I could never understand why people would do that to themselves. Like I played the campaign on, I think the highest difficulty I managed was hard, I think. I didn't even finish legendary
Heroic.
because that just didn't. Was it heroic?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
heroic. Yeah,
normal, or I don't remember whether it was easy, but there was the
easy,
easy difficulty.
normal.
There's normal, heroic, and legendary.
I think the highest difficulty I managed was heroic. I tried playing legendary with a few friends, but they were already way ahead of me, so I just jumped into the session to help them out. back in the day. So I was kind of in the last level of 3 where the whole floor is collapsing underneath you and you
Oh,
have to
Halo
drive the
3.
buggy.
Okay. Yes.
And it was doing my head in
Were
because
you Well,
I,
here's the
I
thing.
wasn't
Were you playing it local or on Xbox Live?
Xbox Live.
Okay. Cuz that makes all the difference in the world because I think it's the annual achievement where you have
Mm.
to get through that segment and everyone has to be in their own warthog or maybe they have to be
Mm.
on mongoose. I forget which one it is. Or no,
I think it was the old
everybody's
Warthog.
no, it's ghost. Everyone has to be in their own ghost for the achievement.
Is it the Ghost?
Um,
Yeah. Yeah, it was the Ghost. Yeah.
you're supposed to go through it in the warthog. That's what the intended
Mm.
concept is, but there's a special achievement if everyone does it in their own ghost. And at
Mm.
least doing it on Xbox Live on 360, it was literally impossible. We played that level for like 4 hours one time. We were doing seriously
So crushing.
perfect and we would still fall through, like still wouldn't keep up. It's because playing it on Xbox Live, like the ground would start falling before we could even possibly get to it because of the
Yep.
timing of how it all worked and the latency and stuff. It was literally impossible. So I haven't tried it again since. That was probably close to like 10 years ago we tried that. So,
Mm.
or maybe not, because I have the 100% completion in Halo 3, the 360 version.
Right.
But I don't have that achievement in the Master Chief Collection version.
Mm.
So I think it was the Master Chief Collection version that we had that trouble in.
So it doesn't carry over when you have the original Halo then.
No, because they're two separate games, so it's not like you are going to automatically unlock. Because not all the achievements are even the same.
Right.
Just a lot of them are. But kind of what
Mm.
you were saying is in the Master Chief Collection, every level in the game also has an achievement for beating it under the par time. Those are easy because you just drop it down to easy and sprint through the level and ignore most of the enemies. The harder thing is every level also has a par score achievement, which I did that on Halo 3, the 360 version, but
Right.
they didn't introduce that idea until Halo 3, so Halo 1 and 2 didn't have it. But those are
Mm.
in the Master Chief Collection for every level in Halo 1, 2, 3, ODST, Reach. Is that it?
I think that was it, yeah.
Is that everything that's in Master Chief Collection? I think so. But yeah, every single level
Yeah.
has an achievement for the par time, which I've done all those because those are easy, and par
Mm.
score. And I've done a couple of those, but I still have a bunch of those par score achievements to do just because you have to beat it under certain times. If you start going over, it starts deducting from your score. And you basically have to, if you play it on normal, it's almost impossible to get those scores. You have to play it on heroic, or you have to turn on some of the difficulty modifier skulls to add to your multiplier. So there's this balancing act you got to come up with. Or where is it you get enough score, but the game is not too difficult that you can still make it through in the par time and get those achievements. So
See, Halo is a fascinating case for me, right? I enjoy playing it locally with
what's up,
friends
Dempsey?
because
About to head off
Dempsey.
to bed, but dropped and want to stop in and say hello. Hello, glad to see you here for a short period
Good
of
to see you,
time.
man.
Have a good night.
See, Halo is a fascinating case study for me when it comes to co-op play as well. I have experiences of playing it online and also locally. Locally, it's a whole lot different compared to like when you play it online with someone else on a different couch, right?
Yeah.
Because you have to coordinate a little bit with the other person, and I found it very frustrating to play on Legendary because I had a hard time figuring out the driving mechanics in Halo. I personally think driving in Halo is the most frustrating thing ever.
It takes a while to get you, assuming you're talking about the Warthog and how it slides
The
around.
Warthog, yeah, especially when you're not used to the controls.
Yeah.
Especially when you're used to like driving in GTA, for example, and you go to Halo
Very
and you're like,
different experiences.
this is very different. And I noticed that in the PC version of the Master Chief Collection is a lot easier to drive for some reason. I don't know why that is. Maybe they tweaked it a little bit. I have no idea. But for some reason, I found it easier there.
I've not tried it on
maybe it's just
the PC version.
Maybe it's just a brain thing. Maybe I'm. I don't know.
Maybe it's just you were better at it.
Maybe I don't know.
It's like, yeah, that's what it was. I was better at it.
Funny enough, I was one of I was always one of those guys who preferred gaming on console, right? Until like just like 4 or 5 years ago, until I realized like how much potential PC gaming has. I mean, so
For I've always been,
PC gamers would say like, duh, of course it is better,
yeah.
but
I've
it
always
takes
been
some time.
more on the console side. One, because it's cheaper and you don't have to
Yeah,
constantly be. Well, I mean, you don't have to constantly be upgrading it, but people who are like, I want the best experience ever. It's like you could buy freaking like 10 Xbox Series X's for the cost of one like this super power PC.
yep,
So it's drastically cheaper for console gaming.
absolutely.
Um, and for the big thing for me though is I would much prefer to play a video game on my 75-inch TV from my couch than sitting at a
Yeah.
desk in front of a 24-inch monitor.
And the advantage of console gaming was you didn't have to install things
That's
that much.
another one. For a long time, you didn't have to install anything. That's an
You
issue for
just
both
pop in the
now.
disc and play. That was the cool thing about consoles. I mean, that has changed now, of course, because of the beauty or magic of patches.
Well,
But
more so, I mean, yes, that is part of it. The main thing why that's not putting in your disc and playing now is because of read write speeds. So
mm,
in order for these games to run, it has to install so it can run off the SSD, because that's reading from
yeah,
an optical disc is going to be way too slow.
I mean, if you think about it, like going back to Final Fantasy Rebirth, it's coming out on 2 Blu-ray discs. And a Blu-ray disc has like a
Jeez.
ridiculous amount of volume to it. I mean, I think it's going to be working in a sense that you have one disc to install the whole data onto the console, and the rest will be on one disc, I think. But it has 2 Blu-rays. It is ridiculous.
Because Blu-rays did this just like DVDs did, because DVDs originally were like, well, CDs were originally like 700 megabytes.
Yeah.
And then they became like 1.5 gigabytes. They doubled it with the introduction of dual layer DVDs, and you had to have special
Mhm.
dual layer DVD players that could even read both layers. They did the same thing with Blu-rays, because originally
Yep.
Blu-rays could hold like, I think it was like 30 gigs, and then it went up to like 60 gigs. And
Yeah.
then they went up to
Something
like
like
nearly 100 gigs, because they actually have triple layer Blu-rays, and I think that's how
that.
most of them
That's
are
how they
now.
do it.
That's pretty ubiquitous now.
Standard now.
So the
Yeah.
fact that they've got two of them, that's more or less 200 gigs. That
Something like that.
that's nuts. But I mean, like we were talking about earlier, when the Modern Warfare 3 update came out, it automatically installed the game even if you didn't own it. Modern
Yeah.
Warfare 2 and 3 on my hard drive was like 225 gigs. So
Mm.
fortunately, the first game I think to do this was Master Chief Collection, where you could uninstall aspects of the game that you didn't
Yeah.
want. You could like, oh, I want Halo 1's campaign, Halo 2's campaign. I want Halo 3's multiplayer. You could pick and choose what you wanted to install,
Yeah.
so you don't have this giant game.
I think the whole package was like 100 gigs or something, wasn't it?
Right now, Master Chief Collection fully installed, which I have it fully installed right now, is I think about 140 gigs.
I've got it on Steam. Let me just check real quick. I think
Maybe,
on Steam it's a bit different, but
yeah, it'll probably
I
be different.
think it was
But the Modern Warfare
180.
180, it's even
gigs.
bigger. Wow.
Jesus.
But yeah, the Modern Warfare 2 and 3 bundle, because you can do that as well. So I uninstalled the Modern Warfare 3 campaign, but with all of
Yeah.
it installed, with the Modern Warfare 2 campaign and the co-op and the multiplayer and Warzone, Warzone and
Mm.
Modern Warfare 3 and its multiplayer, it was like 225 gigs. It was nuts.
See, I just checked on why Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is actually on 2 Blu-rays. And Square Enix decided to offer 2 discs to keep the game's lofty vision, like the graphics and all that stuff, which is more detailed and immersive than Final Fantasy VII Remake. To keep that vision intact, rather than rekindling some form of nostalgia. If it were cramped into one Blu-ray, it would have scaled back to fit on a single disc.
Oh, okay. I was like,
Damn.
I mean, they could just do it digitally, and then you don't have to worry about a file size, essentially, which is what Activision does. But you're talking
Yeah.
about doing it on 2 discs rather than 1 disc, because otherwise they'd have to compress it too much, and it wouldn't be up to their quality. That makes
That's what
sense.
Max Payne. I remember Max Payne doing that. that it had like one disc for single player that you had to install, and then there was a second disc that you had to pop into play. Where the rest of the single player data was on, also the multiplayer was on that disc as well. I remember that one, which was a bit of a weird thing, especially when you downloaded it digitally, you didn't have that problem.
Yeah, I remember when that was, because that's been a thing for PC games forever. Like I did a
Yeah.
whole, not a whole stream, but one of my open mics, I was just by myself and I went through my computer CD tower here of all my games.
Damn.
And
Okay.
I hadn't opened this thing in like 20 years. And
it is eye-opening, isn't it?
I had forgotten that a bunch of the games were like 2-3 discs. The one that was the most was Unreal Tournament 2004 with 6 discs.
6 discs.
But this is before DVDs, so each one of these discs has a max of 700 megabytes. So I remember the first time I ever saw it with a console game, I was like, "Oh, that's cool!" And I think the first one I ever played with 2 discs was Mass Effect 2. Was on 2 discs.
That was on 2, yeah.
And I thought the concept was cool, but then once I actually played it, and you're like, because it's not, at least the way Mass Effect 2 did it, it's not like the first half of the game is on disc 1 and the second half of the game is on disc 2. It's like because it's an open galaxy map and you can go wherever you want. Some planets are on 1 disc and some planets are on 2. So you'd be like, oh, I want to go to that one, and it says please insert disc 2. And then you want to go back to the place you just were. It's like, please insert disc 1. I'm like, this is annoying.
I remember like there were a few games in the PlayStation 1 era. Metal Gear Solid comes to mind, for example.
Never played PlayStation, but I do know that some of those PlayStation games came on 2 or more discs. I think some of the Final Fantasy games were like 4 discs.
I think Final Fantasy 9 had 4 discs. I was like, damn. That was like the last big Final Fantasy game that was on that console. That was right before the PlayStation 2 came out. And then
that was on original.
I remember Metal Gear Solid was kind of nuts as well, because that was on 2 discs, but they split what they did was split the game in half, like you just said, like the one part of it was on disc 2, the other one was on disc 1. So you had like a linear narrative, but every single time you popped in disc 2, you had to make sure that you actually had a save file that was for disc 2, so it would make sense.
Okay, but yeah, so it's not like it would be like, oh, I'm going to go to this part, and then it would ask you to put disc 1 in. It's like, here's the cutoff. Everything from now on is going to be on the other disc.
I'm not too sure if they did that or not, but I think there were some segments where you could actually do that, like, or you could skip like big parts of the game with some sort of exploit, and then you could get to disc 2 like immediately, which is pretty silly. Then later on, they added like this VR mission thing, like this bonus stuff. That was an extra disc as well. So essentially, you had 3 discs worth of Metal Gear Solid back in the day. It is absolutely insane. But I'm kind of glad that technology moved on the way it did in that regard.
I thought when I first heard of the concept of console games being on 2 discs, I'm like, sweet, giant games. And then when I actually played it, I'm like, I hate this. I wanted to be on 1 disc so I don't have to switch back and forth. Yep. Because I think it was one of the Mass Effect, either Mass Effect 2 or 3, I don't remember which one. But one of them was basically the intro to the game was on disc 1. And then the majority of the game was on disc 2. And then when you got to the end of the game, you had to go back to disc 1.
That's silly, isn't it?
Yeah, I was like, why not just break it up more so of splitting it half the game and half the game rather than like a quarter of the game, half the game, and a quarter of the game? That didn't make any sense.
It would have made more sense to keep the ending on disc 2, really, instead of like making players constantly swap between discs,
Yeah,
but exactly. That's the technical limitations that we had back then. Nowadays you laugh at that concept. I mean, you still have like when you play like old games that have been ported to PC later on. Final Fantasy VII is a good example of that. You still have this menu of please pop in disc 2 still to this day.
It's like,
which is funny because it doesn't work. Yeah. It's the same thing with the Metal Gear Solid 1 that was re-released on this was it the Master Collection that they call it now? I think it was the Master Collection.
Oh, the one that just came out?
That just came out. You have to go into a menu on your PlayStation or on console. You have to go into a menu to select the controller slot for a particular boss battle.
Oh, you're talking
Where you can simulate
Psychomantis?
Psychomantis, yeah.
I
You have
know
to
about
go
that.
into a menu to manipulate your controller port now because you can't do that now
Yeah.
again
Yeah, because they're all
anymore.
wireless, so it's like, how do you
Yeah,
switch that?
they had a funny workaround with that one, but it's a cool thing that they kept it. You know,
Yeah.
even though it's a bit convoluted nowadays, but it
Yeah,
is what it is.
I remember hearing some that Kojima did some really crazy stuff, like
He did some
outside
weird
of the
things.
game with the Metal Gear, like
Mm.
with the controller port thing. And the other thing that I know about is the frequency is actually on the game case that you need. It's not
Mhm.
in the game. And people are like,
Yep.
"Where's this frequency I need?" It's like the
Mm.
thing is
It's
something
on
in
the
the game and it's
back of the box.
actually on the case. But it's like if you ended up if you don't have the case, you lost it, or you bought the game secondhand, you didn't get the case. It's like you're
Yep.
screwed.
It is funny that with this kind of stuff, or when Psycho Mantis was reading your memory card when you had like other
Other
Konami
games.
games back in the day. I think it was Castlevania, Suikoden. I think Silent Hill was one of them as well. When they would read your memory card, and you're like, how does he know that?
Yeah. Like I
Even
said,
though
I
it was
never
like a
played it,
simple
but I know
programming
about
trick.
that. It was a cool
Mm.
thing that would like freak people out. It's like, what? That's nuts. How
Mm.
does he know these things?
The best thing is when your controller starts like moving left and right. All of a sudden, you're like, I didn't. Why is the controller? Why is the controller moving by itself?
I'm not doing that.
The funniest thing is also Psycho Mantis messing with your TV when you had like the old CRT vision. It messed with your monitor and it said like Hideo Vision or something like that instead of video
Huh.
at the top. But that seems weird nowadays, especially if you have like a flat screen. You're like, how does that? Why do
Yeah, it
you
wouldn't
do
make
that?
sense now.
It's
Along
the
those
same as
lines, another game that I never played, but it was during that same time frame. This might be what you were just about to say too. But I
mm,
never played it, but I know of it. Is Eternal Darkness, Sanity's
yep.
Requiem.
Hmm.
As your sanity goes down in that game, it starts doing these weird things that make you think it's basically gaslighting you into thinking you're going crazy because it does this
Yep.
weird stuff. So
I would love for them to remake that game.
I've heard a lot of people say that they would love a remake or a remaster of that game because it was really good. And the mechanics of that were really interesting.
It was ahead of its time, honestly. And funnily enough, that studio made a remake of Metal Gear Solid 1.
Oh, what was that studio?
Silicon Knights?
I want to say it was Silicon Knights, which
I
I
think it was
freaking
Silicon Knights.
hate them because of
I'm
Too Human
oh
and Dennis
I
Dyack. That
actually
guy.
I actually owned a copy of that game.
I gameflied it and I did most of the game. I actually just talked about it not too long ago
You
because
can get it
that
for free
game, yeah,
nowadays.
it's free now because the reason I was talking about it is because we were talking about like pettiness in the video game industry
Yep.
because Dennis Dyack thought he was like the second coming of Christ when it came to video games, this arrogant douchebag. And he lost the lawsuit because he used portions of the Unreal Engine without licensing it. And so
Yep.
he lost the lawsuit, and the court ordered that all physical copies be destroyed. And so I
Yep.
think to further rub salt in the wound, the game platforms like Microsoft and I don't know about Sony. I don't know if it was on PlayStation, but I know
It
on
was only
Xbox.
Microsoft, I think.
Okay,
It was
I
only
know on Xbox you can get it digitally for free. So I have the digital
Yep.
copy now, but I have zero interest in ever playing it again because that game pissed me off to no end.
I remember playing it and actually having a good time with it when it came out, and that was 2008. Christ. Wow.
It was a great concept, and there were just a bunch of little tweaks that would have drastically improved the game.
It was dated when it came out.
Yeah, and that was
the
another
biggest
one that was
problem.
stuck in development hell. That game was, I think it went through 3 console generations before it finally
It was
came
supposed
out.
to be on N64.
I'm pretty sure it was. And then it was
Yep.
going to be on GameCube. Then it was on GameCube. And then it was finally on, it was
Xbox
going to be on
360.
Xbox. And then it finally came out as an Xbox 360 game. I'm pretty sure that's how it went.
It's kind of funny how when you read the story behind that game nowadays, you're like, what were they thinking?
Yeah, but yeah,
Especially with that lawsuit you just mentioned. like a humble developer would say like, okay, yeah, I messed up, you know. I may have I should have reached out to you guys and licensed it properly, you know. That
Yeah, I
was
was.
would have been the smartest move instead of like pissing the provider of the engine off.
Yeah, as soon as you're talking about the developer, I'm like, I swear that was Silicon Knights, but I couldn't
Mm,
remember for sure. So when you said it, I'm like, that's what I
they
thought.
ruined their reputation with that one, that's for sure.
Yeah, yeah, that was the death of the franchise, or not the franchise, death of the studio.
Yep, and they did Metal Gear Solid Twin Snakes on GameCube.
I've
That
heard
was
that that's
dumb.
one of the like, I don't know the Metal Gear franchise, but no, you know what? I
Mm.
think I'm getting mixed up because I think the one that I've heard from a lot of people is like their favorite or the best one is Snake Eater, which
Snake Eater is the third game that came out
that's
on
what I
PlayStation
thought.
2. I think that was even the
I,
same year that Twin Snakes came out. Let me just check.
I'm pretty sure
Lem-
Snake Eater was on GameCube as well.
Snake Eater was not on GameCube,
It was
sadly.
not. Oh, okay.
Nah.
The only
Well, it
Metal
came
Gear
out the
game.
same year. It came out
Okay.
the same year as Twin Snakes. Twin Snakes was a remake of Metal Gear Solid 1,
Oh, Mark was telling me about that.
based on the engine of Metal Gear Solid 2, which was not officially funded by Konami, funnily enough. They only published it later on, but David Hayter, the voice actor of Snake, actually funded the majority of the game.
Wow, I did not know that.
Funnily enough, most people don't know that David Hayter actually wrote the script for the first X-Men movie.
He wrote part of the script?
Parts of it, yeah.
Huh.
I didn't know that until like a couple of years later, but yeah, he did write one of the scripts.
Cool.
It's interesting because he has dealings in Hollywood and all that stuff. But
Okay.
it's an interesting story.
My
really think
only
about it because
hands-on experience with the Metal Gear franchise is Revengeance, which, as I was saying earlier, I love hack and slash games.
Ooh.
That game is awesome.
that game is amazing. I'm baffled that they never made a second one. Honestly,
I remember
They should
when
have
they
done.
announced I remember seeing the announcement trailer at E3 one year. I'm like, oh my god,
Oh yeah,
that
the
looks
cutting.
amazing! I could not freaking wait to play that game.
I love the cutting mechanics in that game. They're
Yep.
amazing.
I need to go back
I
to it
think
because
more games should utilize that.
Yeah, I need to go back and play it
Easily.
because I played through it once and that was it. And there's still a
It
ton that I need to do in it. I need to go back.
it
To it.
runs really
Great
well
game.
still. It runs really well.
Aged
I love
well,
that game.
yes, definitely.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
good.
like the first game I remember. I mean, how many other games even qualify for this? But where your cuts are actually like doing what you're cutting, not like just like I
Mhm.
do a bunch
It was
of attacks
very
and then they
precise.
fall apart or something. Like you line up your slashes and it cuts exactly like the way it is, and so you cut
Yep.
these things into like hundreds or thousands of pieces. Like that was awesome. I don't think I've ever seen another game do that.
Yeah, that game was very ambitious with that one. I remember there was a demo where you could cut a melon back in the day, like a tech demo for the game. You could actually play where you
I
had the
think I
melon
played
cutting.
that. I think that was I think that was part of the demo that they released before the game came out. Because I think I
Mm.
played that, or maybe I just
I think
saw
I
it. But I do
I
know what
think I
you're
bought
talking about.
I think I bought Zone of the Enders just for that demo back in the day, because there was another Kojima game back in the day with the flying mechs, which was pretty much like Gundam, but like a bit more casual, I would say.
Okay, yeah, I remember I was watching.
That came bundled with that back in the day, the HD remaster that had the demo with it.
Yeah, I was watching Mark. Yeah, Mark was streaming Zone of the Enders a couple months ago. Right before, I think it was right before Armored Core 6 came out.
Right before that, yeah.
To get ready for more mech games, and he was talking about some of that stuff.
It's still one of the most underutilized genres, the mech combat simulation.
Yeah,
I mean, you have Titanfall, which is amazing when it comes to the mechs. Especially Titanfall 2.
There's not enough mech games. I agree.
No, there should be more.
Before Titanfall, the biggest one I would say, was Mech Warrior.
Was it Steel Battalion?
Steel Battalion was I really wanted to play the game on original Xbox because it had crazy giant like 100-button controller, and it was
I remember that controller
Xbox.
very well.
And it was like a $300 game because of that. I never got a chance to play it, but I really wanted to because it looked awesome.
good luck getting the controller nowadays. I think
Oh
it goes for
yeah,
like thousands on
I
eBay.
bet it was hard enough to find back then, so now it's going to be even more of a collector's item. Yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah.
And then there was the botched sequel on 360 with the Kinect, and it was a hybrid. It was one of the only games that was like a hybrid of using the Kinect and the controller. And I played the demo, and I was like, "This doesn't work right." And I know it didn't do very
No.
well. So
For some reason, it didn't. No.
the other than Mech Warrior, which is still alive because Mech Warrior 4 came out not that long ago. Not did I say 4 or 5? Because Mech Warrior 5 was one that came out recently. Probably about maybe like a year ago.
Yeah.
Maybe a year and a half ago.
Last year, I think.
But it's pretty recent because I played Mech Warrior 4 back in the day, and that came out probably 15 years ago, if not longer.
Yep.
So it was a huge gap between those. But I don't think Mech Warrior 5 made much of a splash. So that franchise isn't. I would love to see.
It's rather niche nowadays, I would say.
Well, I know a lot of people are saying they would love to see a revival of Mech Assault, which is basically the console version of Mech Warrior. I played the demo, and it was fun, but it's kind of a perfect example of comparing Mech Warrior to Mech Assault is the difference between Forza Motorsport and Forza Horizon. Yeah. Mech Assault would be the Forza Horizon where it's kind of dumbed down, but it's more fun. Whereas Mech Warrior would be the Forza Motorsport where it's very simulation. You get to pick every little tiny itty bitty detail, and it's very simulation. And I liked at least in the Mech Warrior franchise, I liked that better because I liked picking everything on my mech. And so I liked Mech Warrior 4, but I'm interested in playing Mech Warrior 5, but I haven't decided whether I'm going to play it at some point. But I know a lot of people would love to see a revival of Mech Assault.
I just, when we're talking about like differences between like games and simulations and all that stuff, Gran Turismo comes to mind. I feel like that franchise has declined very badly compared to like Forza. Yeah, like Forza is the new Gran Turismo.
Has definitely
Forza's the new Gran Turismo.
An upslope, and from what I hear about Gran Turismo, it hasn't been, not that it's gone to like a crappy place or anything, but it hasn't. Its
stagnated.
Quality is kind of at least stagnated, if not dropped a little bit. From what I hear, I've never played a Gran Turismo, but kind of the sense.
It's a shame, really, because I used to enjoy the Gran Turismo games a lot, especially like Gran Turismo 3 when it.
Gran Turismo is like one of the premier PlayStation franchises.
It used to be, yeah. Until they released that. I think the last one didn't make quite a splash because it was like not great in a way. I think the last one had a bit of a stinker because of microtransactions or something like that, or the online there was this always online thing going on, even though there was not much online functionality.
That sounds
there was some weird thing going on with it. Hello, Paul.
Good evening. Good late night. Another thing, this is on an older one. Like I said, I've never played a Gran Turismo, but I remember hearing about this. I think it was one of the PlayStation 3 Gran Turismos because it had to do with achievements. There's an achievement, or in this case, a trophy because it was on PlayStation, for getting like 100%. But due to a glitch or something, it's literally impossible to get to 100%. The highest you can get is like 99.8 or something. There's no way to actually get that last 0.2. So
there's a weird glitch in there that you cannot get to this day.
Yeah, exactly.
It is a shame, really, because you would think that they would make these trophies or patch these trophies down the line, right? Especially for their first party games. But
yeah, good.
For some reason.
I could go on a whole stream probably about unattainable achievements and how aggravating they are to achievement hunters. And I've mentioned this recently as well because I used to be so strict about it. Like if a game had an unattainable, I wouldn't even consider playing it. I've relaxed on that a lot now. So for me now, it's like as long as I can get most of the achievements, I'm fine with playing it. Even if there are unobtainables, but the fact that there are unobtainables is really annoying. Phil Spencer within this week was teasing, or there's rumors that he's going to make an announcement about something related to improving the achievement system in some way. And
Hmm.
myself and a bunch of the guys in my Xbox achievement community are like, fix unobtainables. Make sure that developers don't put out games with achievements that are broken on launch. It's like that's the main thing that
Yeah.
we want.
I find it fascinating, like when we think when you guys talk about achievement hunting, for example. One thing comes to mind that Sony got rid of difficulty related trophies or achievements now in their games, so it's easier for people to obtain the
Platinum.
100% completion because they want more people to complete their games. I mean, I get it, but at the same time, why do you do this? Why do you add different difficulty levels then? If you
Yeah,
don't want
I
to
definitely don't
encourage
agree
people
with
to play
that.
the harder modes,
It should
it
be
doesn't make
up to the
sense.
developer. If they want to have an achievement for beating it on each difficulty, by all means, go for it. But saying no, you can't have an achievement that's difficulty related, I definitely
Yeah,
don't agree with that.
that's
But yeah, like
there
Tommy's
was
saying,
there
it's
was
basically participation trophies,
yeah,
literally.
that's what it is nowadays. I remember playing the first Spider-Man game that came out for PS4. There was an interesting thing with that. There was no difficulty related trophy in a sense, but later on they added the I think it was the the master difficulty or something like that, like the highest difficulty you can play. That got a separate segment in your achievement list.
Hmm.
So you could 100% the game, but you also had the extra incentive of 100%ing the game with that difficulty in mind,
Interesting.
which is a silly afterthought, really, but it
I've
does work.
I've not heard of that on PlayStation. There's no such thing as that on Xbox. However,
Yeah.
Dude 1286 also just got me on retro achievements, which Craig has mentioned a
Mm,
couple times on side scrollers.
right.
Because Dude has been part of this retro achievements community since 2013. He actually has helped develop some of the achievement sets for some of these games because he has a background in like programming and stuff. So
Mm,
he's programmed some of the achievement sets in some of these games. So he's big on the retro achievement community. So I just opened my account just last week. So
mm,
far, I've only played. I've started with one of my favorite SNES games or series of games is the original Super Nintendo Mega Man X game. So far I'm
mm.
still working on Mega Man X1, but I'm going to be moving on to X2 and then X3. And I think
Yeah.
I don't know how this works yet because I messaged him earlier today. I'm like, hey, now that I've kind of gotten familiar with the site, I have a lot of questions. Can we do a call so I can ask you questions? So
Mm.
he's like, yeah, we can do that. So I'll probably do that sometime next week. Since he's an expert on retro achievements, but I've seen that some games have like a second, like an alternate set, and they're like brutally difficult hard. So it sounds kind of like what you're talking about.
That sounds more like modified or like extra challenges. Like it reminds me of these just use this weapon kind of runs. For example, that you're limited to one weapon that you have to use for the entire playthrough.
Yeah. Okay.
Funnily enough, Kingdom Hearts comes to mind with that one because there was because you get like different weapons throughout the game that make you stronger, and then there's this challenge of sticking with your base weapon that you get at the beginning of the game, and then go all the way through the end.
Well, the base achievement set basically has that. It's got like beat the game without getting any upgrades, beat the game
Right.
without dying, beat the game using only the original X Buster without using any of the other
Hmm.
upgrades. That's on the base achievement set. But when you go to it's called where was it? Mega Man
It's
X
like
subset
this one.
bonus is like a separate set of achievements, and they're
Hmm.
basically clear this entire level using only the base X Buster and without taking damage. And it has that for each of the 8 levels in the game.
Damn.
Beat the game
The X
without
games are
getting.
notoriously difficult.
I always thought the X games were easier than the classic Mega Man games. But my first introduction to Mega Man was the Mega Man X games, and that's why they're
Hmm.
my favorites. Beat the game without getting the dash upgrade, which that's basically a necessity almost.
Hmm. That's
Beat
quite kind of difficult without that dash.
Yeah, beat the game using only the X Buster without picking up any items and without letting your health drop below 25%. So, There's
That
all
sounds
these
more like a hindrance than anything else, to be honest.
clear a stage without taking damage or firing your weapon. So these achievements on this subset are nuts.
That sounds nearly impossible.
So I'm glad that they're actually a separate set of achievements and it's not baked into the base game, because these are, and like the unlock percentages on these are all like 1% or lower.
Damn. Well, that makes sense. If I listen to the requirements of them, it sounds nearly impossible.
Yeah, beat this boss using only the X Buster without taking damage and without using the Hadouken and without pausing the game. It's like, good lord. You literally couldn't come up with a more difficult achievement set for these games.
Nuts. This sounds absolutely insane. Like, honestly.
So, but yeah, I'm glad though. It's like, by all means, go for it, as long as it's a separate set of achievements and they're not baked into the base game.
Yeah.
Yeah, it says this bonus set is dedicated for super hard challenges. Achievements requiring glitches and other achievements that don't fit well are not in a standard set.
It sounds like achievements for people who know the game inside and out. Like, do you know the levels inside and out, and like the enemy placement, the weaknesses of the bosses, and all that stuff? That's what it sounds like to me.
Achievements for masochists.
Yeah, literally. I mean, I've never been quite an achievement hunter myself. I've completed some games. I remember 100%ing LA Noire, which was it was like one of my first games on Xbox 360 that I actually managed to 100%.
We just talked about that last week's open mic, but in the regards to how when they like did the remaster, they changed how the responses are. So sometimes you would mean to do something, but then it wasn't exactly what you wanted. And instead of being all nice and polite, you like fly off the handle and like go like accusatory on these people. It's like, why did you change it? It worked fine the way it was.
Yeah, it was like doubt. They changed that to good cop and bad cop or something like that.
Yeah,
which didn't make any sense because sometimes the good cop responses were like the super asshole ones, and you were like, why did you change that?
That's not a good cop. That's bad cop.
Yeah, exactly. And I love the technology that came out of this game with the facial capture, because the facial capture was uncanny, ridiculously uncanny. I mean, granted, it bankrupted the studio that made the game, but
wasn't it Rockstar?
Rockstar was the publisher, but it was Team Bondi, which was like an Australian studio or something.
They published it. Okay.
They went bankrupt after that, because that's why you have so many re-releases of that game, because it went below expectations for Rockstar games, because they banked on it being a hit, but clearly that didn't work out. I mean, LA Noire is a fun game. Like,
you're right.
Crime things
published by Rockstar, developed by Team Bondi, but then the re-release is published and developed by Rockstar.
Yeah, they made some tweaks to the gameplay and all that stuff later on. Like I said, the thing with the good cop, bad cop is a bit of a thing where you're like, you could have done without them, frankly. But like I said, the game itself is an incredible technological feat, especially for the time it came out.
Yeah, definitely.
And I remember having a very hard time with one achievement. That was the last achievement I needed to get, and it was like get every vehicle in the game into the registry, so you have like all of them in there. There was one particular vehicle I couldn't find for the life of me.
I had the exact same problem with Just Cause 2. You have to drive every vehicle, and there's some vehicles that's like, where that? And this is this giant open world, and it includes planes, cars, boats, motorcycles, and everything in between. It's like, where are these vehicles?
And this is a favorite recreation of 1940s LA, and you had to like go through places to find these vehicles. And I think it took me like 4 months to just find one vehicle. But I stuck with it. I was like, how bad can it be? It's only one vehicle, right? Yeah.
I remember
I was foolish
on when I was, because that was my last achievement in Just Cause 2, is driving every vehicle. And the last one I needed was some boat. And I was like, I played this game for like 60 hours. And I've never even seen that thing. So I was just driving around looking for this boat, and I finally found one, and it was going the other way. And I turned the camera, and it had vanished. I even recorded it. I could pull it up on my Xbox. I recorded it. I'm like, there it is. And then as I turned my camera to follow it, it literally vanished, and it wasn't there when I turned the camera. I was like, are you kidding me?
That's awfully frustrating, though, when that happens.
It's like I was just about to get the last one that I needed, and you're screwing me over. I think I found another one like an hour or so later. I was able to finish it off, but I just remember seeing it finally, and I'm like, and it just disappeared.
Yeah, I don't understand why some developers make achievements like that. It's the same with what game was that again? Metal Gear Solid 4. When that game came out, there were no achievements for that game.
Oh,
So
yeah, because
later
PlayStation
on,
3 added in achievements. They weren't on launch. It wasn't until after
much later,
360 was out for like a year that they started doing achievements.
yeah, something like that. So remember that they patched in the achievements later on. Then essentially, the whole gaming community was like, "You're just taking the piss out of us right now. Like these are impossible." Because there was no limitation to what you could pass as an achievement back in the day.
Right.
That was tweaked much later on, because Sony was like, "Hey, you have to get some manageable ones in there." Otherwise,
On
it doesn't make
Xbox,
sense.
it was basically the opposite because
Mhm.
the 360 was the invention of achievements, and
Yep.
developers like with those early release games like didn't know what to do with them. So you got all these games because Microsoft had requirements when
Yeah.
achievements were first came out. You had to have at least 5 achievements, and you couldn't
Mhm.
have more than 50. But you could have anywhere in between that, and all your achievements added together had to equal 1,000 gamer score. Obviously,
Yep.
those rules have changed many times in the
Drastically.
18 years or so since the 360's launch.
Yeah.
But originally, a lot of these early games, developers were like, what do we do with these? They basically just threw in like these easy ones. So all these super, like all of the first generation Xbox 360 sports games had 5 achievements that were like really easy. So
Yep. I, well, there's one game that comes to mind for completionists or achievement
I know
hunters,
where
and
you're going.
that's the Avatar,
Yep, we
the Last
talked about
Airbender.
that on Achievement Chasers. I think either on this last one we did last week because we were
That's
talking about
arguably one
Avatar.
of the easiest one to get the 1,000 points on.
Well,
Uh,
there
the-
are plenty of games now that are even much easier than that, but that was the like gold standard of
hmm,
super easy achievements
Achievements, right?
for years because you could literally get it in the first opening of the
Level.
game.
Yep.
And because I rented it through GameFly at the time, and I got the achievements and I sent it back,
Gamefly.
so I never actually played the game, so I have no idea whether it's a good game or not.
Mm.
It had 5 achievements for getting a 10-hit combo, 20, 30, 40, and 50-hit combo, and you can do
Yep.
that in the very first room just by doing your air push against the
Yep.
first enemy in the game.
I remember there's the like specific games for that now. There's this weird mayonnaise game that you can play now on, I think it's PlayStation even. It's called My Name is Mayo, where you literally just have to tap the X button for a certain amount of times to actually get the platinum trophy, which is like the trophy you get when you 100% complete a game. You
Right.
pay like, I think it was 250 for that per game, and there's like 3 or 4 of those now.
Oh,
That's like the cheapest achievement you can get. I mean, granted, there's other examples that come to mind, especially the Telltale games. I don't know
those
if
are
you remember
I've
those.
I've played a lot of the Telltale games. I was actually just playing Telltale's Walking Dead earlier tonight.
Mhm.
Because yeah,
Because you get
it's
like
basically a
platinum just
playable
for finishing
movie.
them.
Yeah,
It's
there's
a playable movie. Yeah.
so everything except for the Walking Dead final season,
Mhm.
you'll get the completion just from playing through the story. So they're super
Yeah.
easy, but it's basically a choose your own adventure, like a playable movie.
Yep.
It's got great story. They're very well written. They got great characters.
They are.
They're heart wrenching. They really grip at your heartstrings. They're great stories. But yeah,
Mm.
it's not really a game. But yeah,
But it's
they're
an
very
interactive
easy.
movie.
Yeah, it's an interactive movie.
Mm.
But yeah, there's a lot of games that kind of take advantage of the achievement systems.
Yep.
That a lot of some people are like, yay, it's basically gamer score for sale.
It is. That's what
And
it is. Yeah.
there's a lot of people who are like, I'll buy anything to get gamer score up, which I used to be that way, but now I'm like I'm only interested in playing the stuff that I actually want to play. But like probably the worst example recently was earlier this year. I don't even remember what it was called. I'd have to go look it up. But there was a game that they probably threw it together in like an hour, it seems like. But all the game is you load it up and you have this little cat. You literally can't do anything. The camera like rotates around it and the cat like does cat things. There's literally no gameplay. You can't do anything, and you just have to sit there and watch it for 16 minutes, and you'll get all the achievements. Like, what is that?
That's silly.
Yeah. So for people who have kind of gotten off that, just play everything easy for gamerscore, it's like we're like, can you do a little bit more quality control with this to make sure we don't get this crap on the platform? But some people are like, no, I want this so I can get my points up, which I used to be that way, but I'm not that way anymore.
That's the problem with quality control, though, especially when it comes to shovelware, because you get a lot of shovelware now because of this. It has gotten better in the past few years, but I mean, Steam was notoriously terrible for that. That's where you had like these channels with Steam Greenlight and all that stuff, and calling out like asset flips and all that stuff. Granted, those channels don't exist anymore because the quality of Steam has kind of improved, but kind of not. So these channels were kind of obsolete in a way.
Okay.
But I find it fascinating when you look at the systems that developers have put in place, like especially for like modern games. Like Steam has this trading card thing going on when you unlock achievements as well. You get like little rewards for playing the game. Whereas with
haven't quite figured that out yet.
Xbox games, with Xbox games, you have you sometimes used to get like avatars for completing certain challenges.
Yeah, it was separate from achievements. It's not like you would unlock an achievement, then you would use you literally can't do anything with your gamer score points. They're just there for bragging rights.
Right.
But there was on 360 games after a while they added avatar awards where you could do something. It's basically like an achievement, like do this in the game, and you'll unlock some sort of customizable thing for your avatar. Hey, Kay's here. What's up, Kay?
Hey.
Evening.
Hi.
I'm assuming Melee Madness is over, but maybe not because I know sometimes it goes for hours.
Hours, yeah.
Lots of hours.
I just remember there was one particular achievement in Gears of War 2 where you got like an avatar out of that one, and that used to be my default avatar on Xbox Live for a long time because of that. Because I was so proud of actually achieving that one.
That was one of the cool things about it is if anyone knew the game and they saw you wearing that, they knew what you had to do in order to unlock that item because you couldn't purchase it. The only way to get it was from unlocking it in the game, but that didn't last very long, and then they kind of moved on.
Yeah, they got rid of that very quickly. I remember it was not even 2 years or 3 years until they got rid of that.
I mean, the avatars are still a thing, but not in the way that they were back then.
Tombi, get some sleep, man. Seriously. That man is working a bit too hard sometimes, but hey.
Go get some rest. Feel better.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I probably need to get to bed soon.
Yeah. Must be like 1 a.m. for you now?
Almost.
Christ.
Yeah, 12:47. But I'm a night owl, so.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I'm just thinking about like games that I played just recently with these kinds of achievements where I'm like, this is ridiculous. And there was one that came to mind, which was Elden Ring. Elden Ring was one of them. Where it feels like you hardly make a dent into your achievement list if you don't beat the bosses, because most of the achievements you get in that game are tied to bosses that you kill.
Yeah,
if you suck at the game, you hardly make a dent into your achievement list because of that. Yes, that is actually an Attack of the Dog poster,
I
signed
saw
by the man himself. By the man himself.
Frank Gore.
The score. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I saw
Yeah, I
that. I'm
saw him
like,
at
I couldn't tell. I wasn't sure if that was Attack of the Show or Attack of the Dock, but I figured it was
Attack of the
probably
Dog.
Attack
Yeah.
of the Dock.
Yeah, it was signed by the man himself. I got that at Anime Matsuri because I met Chris Gore there as well because he was at the same table as Nerdrotic. He has a poster up here, also signed by him. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I bet that was
I
cool.
also managed to get a picture with him that I printed on Polaroid in the end because I feel like to add a bit of nostalgic value to it. So it's pretty cool. I like that poster.
Shoot, I totally forgot what I was just gonna say before we got off on the Attack of the Dock.
Because of achievements. Because of achievements.
Something about achievements and. Oh, that's what I was going to say is because you were talking about Elden Ring, and on the first episode of Achievement Chasers, dude was telling me about, or no, you know what? I think it was on an open mic with, I think it was Fractured Filter. Anyways, on one of my open mics, someone was telling me all about Elden Ring because I have access to it and it's on my backlog of things to play, but no. I think Fractured Filter was telling me about Elden Ring, but I think it was Dude that was telling me about the achievements and how there's like
that sounds about right.
And there's like 4 different endings, and there's an achievement for each one, and you have to do some crazy stuff to do them. So you basically have to do like 4 playthroughs of the game to get them all.
Yeah, and do that with a Souls game, especially if you suck at them. I mean, I managed to get quite far in that game, but I think I gave up after a while because one of the last bosses was rather ridiculous because they have attack patterns in those From Software games where you're like, how do you do this?
Just how?
Yeah,
I've got
the hitboxes of these enemies are ridiculous in the From Software games. Yeah. I would love to talk to the developers sometimes, asking them what they were thinking when they programmed these bosses.
There's these giant bosses that have these huge sweeping attacks that take up like this 90% of the area,
literally your entire screen. It blows my mind.
When I do get around to playing Elden Ring, I've got a video that Mark made saved in a playlist of mine. He's like, here's how to get like a really good weapon like 20 minutes into the game. So I'm assuming when I do get around to playing Elden Ring, I'm gonna go follow that video, and that whatever that weapon is gonna help make the game easier. So yeah, I just don't know when I'm gonna get around to it because I've got a huge backlog of games.
Yeah, I started to chip away at my backlog like in 2020. That's when I really started to like get into games that I wanted to play, but I never got around to, like the original God of War on PlayStation 4, for example. Nier Automata. There were quite a few games that I managed to beat in the time when I wasn't working.
Oh, are you talking about the rebooted God of War or the original?
The reboot, the Christopher Judge ones, the newer ones.
I just bought that in the Steam sale or in the Steam fall sale.
It is a good game. It is a good game.
I've never played a God of War, but like I was saying, I love hack and slashes, so I'm definitely looking forward to it. I'm sure I would have loved the old God of Wars, but I never had a PlayStation, so I never had.
They would have been more up your wheelhouse, actually. The originals. They're very good.
I just don't.
If you can get a PlayStation 2 copy and emulate it on a PC, it's much better, actually.
Okay, I was gonna say I was looking for if they had ported the older ones to modern consoles, and they hadn't. So I was like, I'd have to go back and.
The only way you can play them now is through PlayStation Now, I think, because you have HD ports for 1 and 2 that came out for the PlayStation 3, I think.
Okay,
but I'm not too sure about that anymore.
The emulation way might be the way to go, though.
Yeah, it for PlayStation 2 especially, because the emulation for PlayStation 2 is not as difficult as like for PlayStation 3, for example, because that console is notoriously terrible to emulate.
Yeah, I've heard that. I don't know if this is true, but I've heard that just developing for PlayStation was more difficult than developing for Xbox, because Xbox is more like, basically Microsoft, so it's basically a computer. So It's much more like Windows, where PlayStation is this, proprietary hardware, so it's harder to develop for. That's what I've heard.
This is interesting trend when you look at like reviews from that era, that the Xbox 360 versions of the games usually got better scores as well, especially because of that reason. Because most of the ports, especially
The exact opposite of what do they call it now?
Bayonetta comes to mind. Bayonetta comes to my mind.
What was that term for the Xbox tax? It's basically the opposite of that.
Yeah, and now it's the Nintendo tax, isn't it? Like because of the cartridges that they use, you have like a little Nintendo tax that you pay for the games now. It's kind of weird how that works nowadays, but that's.
I'm wondering if we're talking about two different things, because this Xbox tax isn't actually like a tax. It's the concept. I'd actually only heard about it a couple weeks ago.
Okay.
The concept is that if a game is on PlayStation and Xbox, it gets a lower score just because it's the Xbox version from critics and stuff. So that's the Xbox tax. So what you were talking about is on 360, where games would do better because they were on Xbox 360. So it'd be the opposite of the Xbox tax.
Yes, there was some games that ran better on Xbox 360, and then there were other games that ran terrible on Xbox 360 for some strange reason. There was like this. It was very uneven in a way, and I like I said, Bayonetta comes to mind because the PlayStation 3 version of that game is notoriously terrible.
Okay, because the 360 version, I don't remember having any troubles with it.
That's the thing, and that Xbox 360 version was used for the PC port that came out years later. Same for Vanquish, I think.
Yeah, Vanquish was. They both came out very close to each other, and they're both platinum. They also had the a 10-year anniversary bundle with remasters for both of them, which I bought, and I beat both of those. So I've beaten Bayonetta twice, and I've beaten Vanquish twice, and they are excellent games.
Excellent games. If you haven't played them, go play them. They're really good.
I did, because I did Vanquish back when I did both of them when they were new-ish, and I completed 100% Bayonetta back then, but I never completed Vanquish because the challenges that you have to beat to get the 100% are really hard. So
they're very hard
for like 15 years, or I don't know. I'd have to go back and look at it, but for like 12 years, maybe somewhere between 12 and 15 years, I had like 2 or 3 achievements left in Vanquish. And then I bought the Bayonetta and Vanquish 10-year anniversary bundle when it went on sale a couple years ago for, I think, because normally I think it was 40. I think I got it for 50% off, so I got it for 20. And then I replayed Bayonetta and got the 100% again. And then I went through Vanquish and I did the same thing. I basically got everything except for those challenges achievements. This is like 2 or 3 years ago. And then earlier this year, probably around March or April, somewhere around there, I went back and I completed those challenges on both versions of Vanquish. So I now have 100% completion of both of the Vanquish versions.
It's a good thing when you remember how these games work, though, when they don't change them fundamentally. That's the good thing. They can go back and actually tackle them again.
Yeah, because they were legitimately the exact same game, just with a bit higher, nicer coat of paint. So it's not like they changed anything with the game. I
mean, Bayonetta still runs great when you have the right version. If you have the right version, that is.
Yeah, I hate
the Switch version. The Switch version is probably one of the best running versions of that game, next to the PC port. Surprisingly.
Yeah, I hate that Bayonetta went to a Nintendo-only franchise because I haven't been able to play Bayonetta 2 and 3 because they're on Switch only. Well, I mean, Bayonetta 2 was Wii U, but they ported it to Switch, and I don't have a Switch. So, but when I do get a Switch, I will be getting the Bayonettas 2 and 3 as well because I do want to play those at some point. But
you get 1 and 2 in a bundle, I think, or at least you used to be able to get that in a bundle. Like when you bought 2, there was a code for 1 inside, so you could actually play 1. Which was pretty cool.
Okay.
What really baffles me is that Sega, who owns Bayonetta, at least 1,
they
hasn't even considered porting them to PC. At least, that's what still boggles my mind to this day. Because Bayonetta 2 is a really good game. It's just shackled by Nintendo hardware. And let's face it, the Switch is not getting younger or getting better hardware anytime soon.
Yeah,
unless
that's
the
why
Switch 2
I've
rumors
been
are to be believed.
I
You know,
was because Kay is big on Nintendo. So a
she loves
couple months
Nintendo. Yeah.
ago, I was hounding her for like I had a bunch of questions about Switch, and I was like
Right.
really thinking about getting a Switch. I have not yet because
Hmm.
I ended up deciding like I'm gonna wait because it was probably like September or so, and there was a
Hmm.
lot of rumors swirling around that time about impending announcement of some kind for the next Switch. Obviously, we still haven't
Yeah.
had that, but
It will come out, I think.
as of right now,
Nintendo is just being coy. you know.
yeah, I'm holding off until I'm ideally holding off until an announcement for a Switch Pro or Switch 2 or whatever, assuming that it is backwards compatible because I can't imagine that it wouldn't be.
That would be
But
stupid if they wouldn't.
exactly. But at that point, that's when I think I'm going to get a Switch, and the first thing I'm getting is Metroid Dread because I haven't played it, and I'm
Oh
a
yeah,
Metroidvania enthusiast, so it's the only Metroid I haven't played. But that's the number one game I'm getting is Dread.
I think you will enjoy it because it's right up your alley.
Yes.
Definitely.
So, but
I'm very certain you will like that game a lot.
me too. And I don't know exactly what order I'm going to get them in, but once I do, I will definitely be getting and playing Bayonetta's 2 and 3 at some point as well.
Oh, 100%. 3 is a funny one because you can tell that the limitations of the Switch get to the game really badly. You can tell that it could run on better hardware. If you know what I mean, they had to cut a lot of corners to make that game work. To put it mildly.
Yeah, it makes sense because they're like, what? Nintendo is going to be Nintendo, and what's the term? They beat to they march to the beat of their own drum. That's the phrase I was looking for.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's like it's been 6 years, I think, because I think Switch came out in 2017.
Was it 17?
I think I want to say it was 2017. But yeah, it's been 6 years, and it's like, hey, you guys should probably do like a refresh of some kind. It's like, nah, we're selling plenty as is. You can't even keep them in stock, even though it's been around this long. So why would we release another one?
2017. 2017.
I was right. Nailed it.
March 3rd, 2017.
I would not have gotten the date, but I probably would have gotten the month. If you asked me what month was it, I probably would have said March. But yeah, it's like,
I mean, I've got the OLED model, which has slightly better parts. So I think because some of the games hinge a little bit faster on the console for some strange reason. The OLED is really good. I really enjoy playing games on it.
When I was getting really close to buying it a couple months ago, I was going to get the OLED Tears of the Kingdom version because I like the gold and all the Zelda designs on it. But it doesn't even come with the game. It's just the Zelda version.
It's just the console.
Of the console. You have to buy the game separate. Yep. But I do plan to get at least Tears of the Kingdom. I'm probably going to skip Breath of the Wild since they're essentially Tears of the Kingdom is Breath of the Wild on steroids.
It helps for references in the game that you play Breath of the Wild, but I think if you read a synopsis of what happened,
I'd probably do like
you might be good
summary video on YouTube or something that wraps up.
It can't harm to have a brief summary because there are references in Tears of the Kingdom that reference certain events of Breath of the Wild that you would be totally lost on if you wouldn't know. Especially when it comes to certain characters.
Tommy's got the one I was talking about, the OLED Tears version. Nice.
I wanted the Smash Brothers one. That looked really good too. With the Smash logo on it, the cross, that looked really good too.
I don't know if I've seen that one, but Smash is definitely another game I would get as well because
Smash Bros. Ultimate is like probably the ultimate love letter to video games, in my opinion. I mean, granted, people say Fortnite is that, but Smash Brothers just is. Let me think. I think one streamer that I watched, I think it was Maximilian Dude. He described the game as this: it's video games, the game, and I think I understand why he said that because
that makes sense.
It is kind of a love letter to like old games that we grew up with. I mean, you have like characters like Banjo and Kazooie beating the living crap out of Solid Snake, and then you have like more modern characters coming in later on. And then you have like the icing on the cake, which was Sora from Kingdom Hearts joining, and
You
he
know,
was
the one
literally
thing I
the
don't think they
impossible character.
capitalized on is there's not enough Fire Emblem characters. Right,
Too
Kay?
many Source Fighters. I
There's not
love that there was a reference in the I think it was the Byleth trailer that where they were essentially like mocking the people complaining that there were too many Swords Fighters in the game.
I
What was
think
that?
Kay
Too
will
many
agree
Sword
with me
Fighters?
that there's not enough Fire Emblem characters in the game. Because
Oh, absolutely.
she was just going on a rant just the other day about Smash Bros. Because she's not a fan of Ultimate. Hers is Melee is her favorite, and she was talking
Melee
about God.
Melee is a great game, but
She was saying
Ultimate
how
is
much
like the Ultimate
like,
Edition. You know,
there's too many Fire Emblem characters.
it is true though. There are too many Fire Emblem characters. That was the original Smash Switch that I found, but there's another
you
one
found
for
it.
OLED. Let me just see if I can find the OLED model.
Okay, nice. Yeah. Although, is it supposed to be in black and white?
That was the old Switch model. I'm trying to think. Oh yeah, there's the OLED one. Yeah, it is black and white. Weirdly enough, I don't know why it is, but let me see if I can.
Yeah, I've never even played Ultimate before because I've never even played a Switch before in my life. So I'm definitely looking forward to playing that at some point as well because I love Smash Bros.
Smash Bros is a fun party game.
I didn't play the Wii U version because I've never even seen a Wii U in person. But I
Wii
did
U
play
is a
lot.
fascinating piece of tech that was falsely marketed, in my opinion.
Very poorly.
A lot of people thought it's essentially just an add-on for the Wii.
I didn't even know, as most people, I didn't even know what it was for the long time because I was like,
that was the biggest problem that Nintendo had.
It's like you didn't even make clear that it's a new console. It's not something you just add on to your existing Wii.
That's what when Nintendo dropped the ball, in my opinion, because they could have marketed it better, and then maybe people would have caught onto it a little bit better. Because a lot of people were like, "Why should I bother buying this console if I already have a Wii?" And the majority of people were right, because at the end of the day, it's essentially a souped-up Wii with a gamepad peripheral, an extra screen. So essentially, you got an oversized 3DS with just the bottom screen.
Yeah.
The funny thing was, you could like play co-op games on one screen, then at the TV for the other person, or you could use it for Wind Waker to read the map, for example, which was a cool gimmick because it worked. But for other for other things, it was not as useful, in my opinion. And like you could play like DS games and advanced games on there, but
another thing that people thought was like, "Oh, cool! I could take it on the go and play." It's like, no, it has to be within range of the Wii.
Yeah, it has to be within range.
Work. So I think that's where they came up with the idea of the Switch. Is like, let's do this, but let's really actually do it. And
they had to evolve. They had to evolve with that console because if they would have done another
bomb
console like the Wii U, they would have not been around anymore because the Switch is selling like hotcakes, isn't it? So they had to make sure that they knock it out of the park.
The PS2 for highest selling console of all time.
They're getting there.
It depends on how long they keep it around before they move on to the next console, but it could potentially pass it.
I mean, I looked at the sale charts for Japan for last week because of the latest releases they had, and there was still people buying Mario Kart 8. Mario Kart 8 has been around for quite a long time already as well.
Yeah,
and it blows my mind that game still sells so well.
Yeah, let's see. No, this isn't going to help. Yeah, I was trying to look it up, but I remember pulling it up not that long ago. Oh, is this what I'm looking for? Yeah, it's a forum. Yeah, I can't find it, but yeah, it's approaching it. It could potentially pass it depending on how long they keep it around.
I mean,
totally, somewhat related, but I remember hearing a funny statistic. I think it was October that it was reported that some country there was one sale of a Wii U.
One.
Yeah.
Oh, I think that was in Europe, wasn't it?
I think so. I just thought
It
it
was in
was
Europe
funny that it was
somewhere. Yeah,
reported that a
I think it
country
was
had
in.
one sale of a Wii U in this
I
month.
think that was the UK. I think that actually was the UK. Weirdly enough, I think one Wii U.
I'm gonna find it.
Yeah, it was. Let's see, in the US actually.
Oh, okay. Was it October? It wasn't that long ago.
Yeah, it was in. Let's see, the Wii U, despite being discontinued and phased out, managed to sell just one new console in the US this year. Let's see, what does it say? And
When was the article written?
Piscatella revealed that Nintendo managed to sell one Wii U in the US earlier in September.
September. Okay,
which is the first to be sold since May 2022. Jesus,
first one sold in like a year and a half.
That's kind of nuts. That even predates the PlayStation Vita, which sold its last unit in November 2021. Wow. Talk about random.
Telling me some liquor of Windows bought one.
Yep.
Good job, America.
Essentially, yeah.
America, because we can.
Yep, that's how that works. Right.
All right.
Christ, 3 hour mark has passed.
Yep. Just realized
time has been flying, man.
It always does. It's like, oh my god.
It is funny, isn't it?
How much time has gone by? Yeah. It's like just been sitting here talking, but time flies because I always have a blast doing this. It's so much fun.
That's what I like about these conversations. You know, just talking away and just having time pass like crazy. I like that.
So, yeah, I think we'll call it there, and I'll get to bed because it's just past 1 o'clock here. So
yeah, you should get to bed.
So what? Plug yourself. What you got going on?
I'm currently well. I won't be playing over the weekend. Probably Sunday, I will be playing Final Fantasy 14 with Tombi again. Friday and Saturday are going to be a quiet one because I'm going to do something with the family. I'm currently rendering my Party Animals session that I did with Tombi earlier yesterday, which should be up in like 3 hours from now because it's rendering in HD. I also played Baldur's Gate the last 2 days, which sums up to almost 6 hour sessions each. So you've got 12 hours of that. And I think there will be more Metal Gear Solid 3 very soon. It's on the Gaming with Smooth channel. And other than that, not much else. Just essentially just going to be Baldur's Gate and Metal Gear Solid 3 and obviously Final Fantasy 14 at the moment. So I'm just rotating these games out so I don't get burned out on one game too quickly.
Sounds good.
That's pretty much it.
All right. Well, what I got coming up, I did schedule my guest for the next episode of Party Chat, which will be a week from Saturday. Well, a week from tomorrow, now that it's past midnight. I don't have a guest for open mic next week yet. I always say anyone who wants to come on and talk video games with me, let me know. Tombi, if you ever want to come on open mic and just talk games, let me know. I can move it around to fit your schedule, depending on. I know it can be a little difficult to schedule when we're 8 hours apart because I'm in California.
It's kind of nuts, isn't it?
but we can try to figure something out. I'm pretty flexible. I usually do Thursday nights, but I move it around to accommodate guests.
I think Tombi's a bit more flexible because that man barely sleeps as is. So I think you should be fine scheduling something with him. But yeah,
if anyone wants to come on and talk games for open mic next week, let me know. I'm probably going to be starting. Well, I was planning on streaming Sunday evening, but due to last week's Steam Roulette with James became the Mega Man incident. Are you familiar with the Mega Man incident?
I heard some rage quitting going on about Mega Man 2.
Sort of. So yeah, he ended up on I think he was doing Mega Man 2 on Steam Roulette. Oh, okay. Oh yeah, had to take your
Earpieces. My earpiece crapped out. Hang on.
okay. That's why I was like, I think your earpieces died or
Uh,
something. They're not meant to stay on this long.
There you go.
I have to switch it to speakers.
Yeah, but my Bluetooth earpiece crapped out, so it's fine.
So, but yeah, he was playing. I think it was Mega Man 2. I think he ended up on it due to Steam Roulette, and then because he was hating on it, he's not a big Mega Man fan. I love Mega Man; it's one of my favorite franchises ever. And anytime he hates a game, because part of the channel rule is that if someone gifts you a game, he will have to play it on stream. And people like to see James suffer. So when he plays a game,
I noticed that
he doesn't like, people will often gift him that. Like Jonathan Davis gifted him Gollum, so he did a Gollum stream a while back.
Why would you do that to someone?
I think I don't know if he's done it yet, but I think there's going to be a Kong Skull Island stream, or maybe he already did it and I missed it. But yeah, he was not having a fun time with Mega Man. And so he got, by a bunch of different people, he got gifted almost every Mega Man game on Steam, all within a matter of like 10 minutes. It was hilarious. So
Jesus.
He's now going to be doing a Mega Man roulette on Sunday evening, which I'm very much looking forward to. So I'm going to be watching that instead of streaming.
That's going to be fun.
But I streamed quite a bit this last weekend because speaking of achievements, we are the True Achievement community every December does most everyone's favorite community event, 12 Days of Christmas. So I've been streaming my entire journey through this year's 12 Days of Christmas. So I have not done anything towards 12 Days of Christmas since I stopped streaming on Sunday evening. So I'll probably be doing a lot of streaming of 12 Days of Christmas next week. So that's basically what I got planned and coming up for next week before next week's party chat.
It's always a good thing to have like something on a back burner, isn't it? And challenge yourself to play games that you normally wouldn't play, like play games outside of your wheelhouse in a way. That's one of the
things one of the great things I would say about Game Pass is, if it wasn't for Game Pass, there's so many games that I wouldn't have played.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
But I am also, like I was saying, I'm trying to recover my completion percentage before I start a bunch of new games. And so part of my challenge is, as long as it's possible, I'm not starting any new games to complete 12 Days of Christmas. So I'm only using games I've already started, because when you start a new game, that drops your completion percentage. I mean, it's going to take longer to get back to that completion percentage I've had before. So given that I've got all these games that are unstarted, it would make a lot of these challenges easier if I could use some of those achievements, but I'm not doing that. So it's making it a little more challenging. So, so far, I've been having the chat help me decide what games and achievements I'm going to use to fulfill these requirements for each day, because each day is different. So
I tuned in for your first day after the party chat that we had. I think that was the same day.
Yeah,
I watched a little bit of that when you started playing, I think, The Walking Dead. I think I passed out shortly after that one. But
okay, yeah,
I remember you playing that one.
I used Walking Dead for a couple of achievements, but yeah, I did. Yeah. I think I did days 1 and 2 on Saturday, and then on Sunday I did days 3, and I haven't done anything since then. So, each next day, whatever the requirement is for the next day, gets announced at 2 a.m. my time. So in about 45 minutes from now, we will find out what day 8 is, I think. Yeah, because it's one per day. So, and the last thing I did was day 3. So I now have to do day 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 to get caught up. But by the time I get caught up, it'll be, well past day 8. So probably I'll have all 12 days revealed. So I know exactly what I'll need to achieve before the end of the month.
Well, it's easier when you know what you have to do, I think.
Yeah, because sometimes
wondering,
Yeah, and sometimes it's like, oh, I'll use this achievement for day 3, but it actually would have been better to use it on day 7 or something.
Yeah.
So some people, they do that. They'll wait till all 12 days are revealed and then plan it all out. Other people
Mm.
start and just do it day to day, which is what I typically do, and I've done so far. But now that I'm like 4 days behind, once I start streaming, I'll have a few days to know ahead of time what I'm going to be doing as soon as I finish the current day I'm working on.
Mm. Makes sense.
So,
Okay.
all right. Well, that was a blast. I had a ton of fun talking to you and
So did
just
I.
shooting the breeze. That was a blast.
Yes,
So,
sir.
yeah, as I said, as usual, anyone else who ever wants to come on and talk games with me, let me know. We'll make it happen. That's the whole point of Party Chat. So,
Obviously.
well, that'll do it for tonight. And yeah, I look forward to talking to you again. If you ever want to come on again, just let me know.
Gladly.
We'll make it
Gladly,
happen.
man.
And we will see you next time. So, everyone, in the meantime, game on.